Ladies and gentlemen, most wonderful time of the year, or the worst time of the year for a lot of people. It's in time for another patch log analysis, and this is a doozy and a half. Finally, just a couple things to say before it. 6.79, first patch we've ever seen that was implemented, or that's going to be implemented into Dota 2 before Dota 1. Don't know if there's going to be a Dota 1 quest yet. I have to assume there will be. I imagine some of the ports won't be making it through. Yada yada. Nobody plays Dota 1 anymore, even though there is like a 10K tournament in the Philippines. But anyways, this is a Dota 2 patch, and we'll see how much we can get through. We might split into two videos depending on how long, because we do like to rant quite a bit. With me is Stripe Kid once again. We both have a lot to say about this patch. But we're just going to start with gameplay and items, and if it drags on too long, then we might do heroes in part 2. But anyways, hopefully you'll stick with us. I'll put in some timestamps in the video. But anyway, SK, how you doing? How was your day until this patch came out?
I'm doing pretty good. Full disclosure, I don't like this patch.
Oh,
I'm just telling you guys to get the bias out of the way. Some stuff is good. I don't like a lot of it. So I'll try to be as objective as possible. I'm letting you guys know in advance what my biases are. So that said, I'm doing pretty well. I'm ready to do this.
Alright, general. Buyback prevents gaining unreliable gold, creeps, neutrals, etc. until your normal respawn time finishes. When buying back 25% of the remaining respawn time will be added to your next step. We both agreed that we like this change, because buyback was basically risk-free for the most part. Even if you died again after it, as long as your base wasn't threatened, then the only thing that got punished was you lost gold and you lost time. Now you lose more time, and you still lose the gold. We both like this change quite a bit, and now people actually have to think. I've always been irritated, like, Weaver dies on purpose, then buys Zax and time lapses in. Spectre dies on purpose, then buyback and Taunton. Like, I know it's creative, but it just seems like a very silly way to utilize those heroes' ultimates. But with this change, I mean, now you actually have to think about buying back. And because if you die again, then that might be an extra tower on top of the tower that you're already going to lose, or that's a tower and a rush. So we both like this change. Any sort of closing
Yeah,
thoughts?
also, a lot of times, like earliest game, when you're, say you die as an offlaner, as a Furion or something, like early in the game, first 5 minutes, and the wave's about to be on your tower, and you're dead for like 15 seconds, you can buy back for no money at all and TP to the tower and actually get all that experience, or gold, I guess. But now it doesn't do anything, so I think it's a pretty good change.
So we both like this change. One of the few gameplay changes that we both liked quite a bit. But anyways, let us know what you think about the buyback, etc., etc. Moving on, creeps now meet a bit closer to the tower in the offlane. Let's go over this one first. So this patch, or these gameplay adjustments, obviously are aimed at tri-lanes and making them a bit less viable. So just going over this change by itself, moving the creeps closer to the offlane, not considering the rest of the updates. What do you think about this?
I think this is a pretty okay change, because most of the general changes in this patch are about the offlane versus tri-lane. And in general, I think that it's pretty much geared towards helping the offlane get more out of it.
Because
This
sort
is a
of the
good one, I
general
think.
take on Dota is that at a certain point it becomes way too predictable, and offlane versus Trine, offlane is often level 1 unless it's a jungle hero for like 5 minutes into the game. This at least makes you a bit more competitive, even though a good carry will always be able to control the creepy little room. But we'll go over back to the experience in a little bit. So overall, you like this?
Yeah, and I don't actually know how close it is. If it's past where,
It's
like
like,
a lot
you know
closer,
on
is it
the
past where
you
the
know the
supports will come
dire
out behind you?
top lane, the
Yeah.
second path to where the tree camp where there's two paths to the heavy
Yeah, is it
neutral
at
spam.
is it at the
It's
one
at
that's
the
close
tree
to
path.
you?
It's closer to the off lane, so it's like near the
So you're
second
not going to
path.
get zoned from level 1, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean I think that was sort of necessary because like if it actually makes more viable off lane heroes possible, and it opens up the possibility to dual lanes to a certain extent because you're not in so much danger.
Yeah.
Alright, this change I despise. Range heroes now get the same deny experience as melee heroes instead of less. What's the point?
Well, here's what I think the point is, and there are good things to it, but I think it outweighs what the actual effects are. So if we think about the XP AoE increases and the creeps meeting closer to your tower in the offlane, it means that as someone like a Windrunner, as a Potom, as those two heroes are the first two ones that came to mind, you can actually get experience without it being denied. Because a lot of times what would happen when I'm playing Windrunner, even in just a pub or whatever, they're just hard denying. So I'm actually in experience range. It's on my tower, but every single one's being denied and I'm not getting anything. So it's kind of cool that you'll get experience for that as Windrunner and Potom. But I think you have the negatives, and I think that they outweigh the positives,
The
which is
negatives
just the
are the
lag.
mid lane,
Yeah.
and mid lane is just basically, well, usually at level 1, sometimes melee heroes, they have high effective base armor, have high effective base HP, and mid lanes I like to run these days are Night Stalker. He's now my favorite hero with Batrider. And now, like, what's the point of ever denying with the melee hero in the mid lane? There's
Yeah,
literally
because
no point.
you take the whole trade-off. The reason why this was this way in the first place was that when you go in as a melee hero to deny, you're going to take harass. It's just going to happen. You're going to get clicked on. So, obviously there should be some increased reward for you having to take harass for that. But the fact that you now actually don't lose anything when that happens, I don't know. It's just the risks outweigh the rewards a lot of times if you
Yeah.
go for denies.
So
It
level
actually
one
it's and it's a
melee's
buff to heroes like Shadow Fiend and Obsidian Destroyer and those heroes that are already okay-ish mid for range. Like the heroes that are ranged heroes and do really well against melee heroes are not going to do even better.
yeah. I mean, like, usually at a certain point you can't deny with melee heroes anyway in the mid lane for Dragonet or Night Stalker, but now you're pretty much only have to go for last hits, and you really can't slow down the range experience growth anyway. Which at a certain point, like, yeah, the ranged person will surpass you in terms of experience, but you could limit it to a certain effect. Now, like, you really can't if the ranged hero keeps up with the denies. So I don't like this change for mid. I guess it makes sense in the offlane. I never really thought about it in the offlane, but you've been playing offlane a lot more anyway, so I guess you've sort of have been thinking about it.
Yeah,
XP AoE increase from 1200 to 1300.
it's just for the offlane.
Yep.
That's about it.
Alright, now here comes the crux of the patch.
This is my least favorite thing in this patch.
We're just gonna, well, I'll go over the creep changes in a bit, but non-ancient neutrals now split experience with all heroes in the AoE instead of the team that killed them. Swap the medium pullable neutral camp with the small camp, and neutral creep camp will no longer spawn the same set of neutral camps twice in a row. So these three changes, well, I guess not really the third, but these first two pretty much changes the entire game. So
Yeah, this is the biggest deal of this patch. So here's how I see it.
Again, it's got this tri-lane dynamic versus your offlaner. Normally what happens, the way it worked in the past was whoever gets the last hit on the creeps gets the experience. And 99% of the time, that's going to be either your creep who you're pulling the wave to or the support itself. Which means that the offlane gets nothing from that. However, when they actually die to the enemy team now, you get the experience, meaning you're literally taking the experience away from the enemy supports and putting it on the offlaner. It makes offlaning so much more easy because now you just go there. So for like a hero like Bounty Hunter, they're not going to have sentries over there. You just walk over invis and take all their experience. Or for a hero like Clockwork, you can't get zoned anyway because you have the cogs. You just walk right over. Anybody with an escape mechanism, really, anybody can just get close to it and then leave. It's really, really easy to do, and you just take their experience. And the fact that it's now the weak camps as opposed to the strong camps, if you double pull it, it's not going to necessarily kill the wave. So it's gonna mess up the wave to begin with, and now it's less experience anyway because it's the weak camp instead of the medium camp. So now the supports are getting a lot less experience, and they can't keep the enemy offlane away from taking it. Now where are supports gonna get their money and levels? And now offlaning just got so easy. Like there's no point. This is like something out of Blizzard Dota,
I mean,
just for casual Dota.
yeah, we'll go over a bit more about how sports can get money in a little bit, and like what the effects are. But this is basically just like making the game easier for the
Easy.
enemy team. Like it sort of it
Well,
doesn't it rewards the player that's getting zoned out, which the point of the tri-lane is to zone out the offlane and get safe farm.
yeah,
So
obviously Dota's, when we say it's easier, Dota's a zero-sum game. So when
Yeah.
it's easier, it's also easier for your team, which means it's not actually easier at all. But it's less complicated, and doing something well that's hard to do is now mitigated because it's really easy to counteract something that you have to put a lot of effort into doing. And that's why I would say it's easier.
yeah,
Simpler would be a better way of saying it.
but this just gives heroes like Darkseer, Clockwork, Bounty Hunter such a big advantage. And yeah, I like that you're sort of increasing the viability of more offlane heroes. I mean, but those heroes were viable anyways. And to an extent, yeah, I like the ideas of offlane heroes because again, I'm an offlane player of actually hitting some levels. But I don't know if this was necessarily the right way to go about it. Now, of course, I'm not Ice Frog. None of us are Ice Frog. We're theory crafting. We're obviously scrubs. But I don't know how we could have gone about it. I just don't think making so that it rewards everybody in the game is
Well, the issue is another issue is that a lot of supports are level 6 supports, meaning You really want that support to get to level 6. So Crystal Maiden would not be a level 6 support. She's great at level 2, you know? But a support like, say, Naga Siren, Wisp, Bane Elemental, heroes that start really getting online and powerful and scary once they hit level 6, it's going to take you forever to get level 6. Because now the camp's giving out like half the experience anyway to begin with, because it's just a weaker camp. And then it's going to be halved by the fact that the enemy's there too. Where are supports getting their levels? I think that this change was done to make the game 2-1-2. I think that IceFrog wants to see a 2-1-2 setup with lanes, and I don't think that's good.
We could talk about that a bit later as we go on, but that's pretty much my thoughts. Like, there's really no point of ever tri-laning supports with the small camp being possible and heroes being able to steal experience, especially against like somebody like a bounty hunter or a clock or a bear. But anyways, overall neutral creep experience were reduced, so this is obviously a nerf to jungles like Bat Rider, most notably.
Yeah, Darkseer.
Darkseer, Furion to a certain extent, Shen, Enchantress. Because heroes who could jungle always seem to have a bit more of an early game advantage. But again, I don't know if this was really. What are your thoughts on the experience change?
I think nerfing the jungle again is just trying to enforce a 2-1-2. Simply because if the jungle sucks, you're going to want to put someone not in the jungle. Something that actually is nice about this, which you don't get punished as hard for aggressive tri-laning. Because the problem with aggressive tri-laning is that when you go to do it, you're sacrificing your pull, which means that pull is where your supports get all their levels. So the enemy team has access to that, and they might get off 1 or 2, which means they're going to get more levels than you. But if that pull doesn't do anything anymore, it's not that good, it's not a big deal to sacrifice it. So aggressive tri-laning is better now, which I think is pretty cool. It's one of the nice side effects of this, but the fact that the jungle in general is nerfed means that, you know, obviously Chen and Enchantress aren't going to be as good.
Yeah, and this
but
is also...
they're just trying to mix up offlaners is what it is. He just wants more offlaners. He's sick of teams abandoning the offlane.
And also, it's just like, well, buy Alliance, buy Speed Gaming, have fun, you know, not farming into the jungle. You are sort of forced to roam old LGD in style in the first couple minutes. So, I mean, you can't really double pull as effectively because you won't get nearly as many levels. You can't do...
They changed the pull timers, too.
Yeah, so...
I don't know how that works.
I don't know
either.
either.
If it means something or if it doesn't, but it could mean something, because we haven't seen it yet.
Yep, so anyway, going to the Ancients... Dragon Ancient Neutral Camp now have flying movement capability, so no longer can you do the shitty Medusa ancient things, but it also sort of limits some...
doesn't that work for Medusa? What doesn't that work for? If it's flying?
I don't know, I guess Mirana and Windrunner to a certain extent, because you can't really stack anymore, can you? That effectively, because they can just fly over shit.
Do machines hit it?
Yeah, machines...
Okay. I know Broodmother spiders can't kill them. I remember that from Dota 1. You can't send your spiders to go do it. So I guess, you know, I don't know. I wish I knew more about mechanics to say what this means, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, all I know is that it'll make sort of ancienting harder.
It's done to patch out some strategy about doing ancients. That's all we know. We don't know which strategies they are.
Right. Anyways, non-neutral Envenomed weapons for the level 1 camp, which I guess is now in the, pull spot.
This is a big change.
Yeah, it's
this
like,
is good.
I like it, because you won't get clarities canceled, you won't get the debuff at the very least. If they hate you, of course they're going to cancel it, but the debuff from the poison, you can't wait 8 seconds for,
it's on forever, and then you just can't use your regen rune or whatever.
So we both like that one. Anyways, moving on, day, night length decreased from 6 to 4 minutes. The following heroes now have a standard 800 night vision Drow, Mirana, Puck, Lesh, Enchantress, AAA, Meepo, and Tree. So, I don't really like this at all.
I hate it, but we both like to play Night Stalker, right?
Yes.
Hero's super legit. Here's a problem with this change. It's going to have other things.
I mean, let's look at the positives first. So, this obviously fits into the game plan where you want to have roaming supports, because at 4 minutes you won't have nearly as much vision anymore. You can roam in a bit more effectively, and
it's easier to go kill mid.
Yeah, and that might be the way for supports to actually get experience. Now, the downside is that
Night Stalker
heroes with bad vision or with bad vision really get hurt. And I mean, let's talk about Night Stalker for a second, since we both play him. So the point of Night Stalker at level 6 is obviously, it's pretty obvious when you're going to gank, but at level 6, or at minute 6, you're usually level 5 or level 6, where you have a nice level void. Now at 4 minutes, you're probably going to be level 3 or level 4, where you have a level 2 Void, and that's really not going
Can't
to
do
be
anything.
enough to
The whole
kill a
point of Night
support.
Stalker is to dominate the first night and get map control just based off of having a really, really good first night, right? So now the first night comes at 6 minutes, or well, it used to come at 6 minutes. You run around the map for 6 minutes killing supports that are underleveled. Pretty straightforward, right? Now the first night starts when you aren't ready to leave your lane. By the time you are ready to leave your lane at about level 6, 7, night's almost over. There's like a minute, 2 minutes left on night. So that's kind of a problem because it means that when the next night rolls around, sure, the next night will roll around faster. It'll be at 8 minutes.
And
So
by that
isn't
time, supports
late,
are going to be level
but
5.
at that point, yeah, the supports have enough levels to actually defend themselves. They have enough gold for the TP to TP out immediately after they get voided. Like they'll actually be able to defend themselves. So it's just not good for Night Stalker.
Yeah,
It
I think
really
we're a
hurt
bit
him
biased
lot.
because we both love Night Stalker, but it sort of makes sense in the grand scheme of things of having more roaming supports, having reduced vision, having those movements earlier on. So I think this has both good and bad aspects. We're just focusing a bit more on the bad aspects because we're Night Stalker aficionados. I mean, right now I can't really tell for sure how this will really affect. But this next change is the most nonsensical change I've ever seen in Dota. Like, this literally makes no sense. Roshan will respawn at a random time between 8 and 11 minutes after death. The other one, where it just expires on use heals your hero fully over 5 seconds, that's good. This one is
That's
bad.
very legit, yeah.
This
Here's
one
the deal
is...
with this. This is how I see it. So, when you're on a losing team and you're just not winning Dota, but you need to figure out some comeback mechanic of getting back in the game. Normally, what happens is there's a fight forced at Roshan at the 10-minute mark after the Aegis fell off. Both teams know when it's going to be. Both teams are setting up for this Roshan. When both teams set up for this, you have your carry farming for as long as possible, and then he shows up at Roshan. Just as long as possible. So basically, you're not losing a whole lot when you're on the losing team, and then you go to contest Roshan. However, when it's this way, I think what happens is the losing team has to secure the Aegis, otherwise they lose the game. They just lose. Whereas the winning team doesn't put quite as much of an emphasis on it. So the winning team just has to carry their carry farming and farming and farming while the rest of the team secures Roshan. But the losing team probably hasn't got enough towers, so they can't just TP their carry in, right? They can't just TP their carry to the fight and then he's instantly there. Their carry has to be there already when Roshan spawns. So he's not farming. And I have no issue with the mechanic of Dota being when you're ahead, it's easier to get farther ahead. I'm fine with that. But I think in this situation, it's a little bit too much simply because the carries aren't going to be able to farm and you just stall the game and have your carry farm when you don't know when Roshan's up. Obviously, it's a huge buff to heroes like Clockwork, Beastmaster, TA. You can scout that out, but I don't like it.
And let's just talk about Dire. So Dire, they always have the natural Roshan advantage because I have high ground going in. They have a choke point. It's easier for.
They have ancients.
Yeah, they have more towers directly able. Radiant really have only one path to go over Roshan, which is near the River Ward. Now Dire are even better because they can set up a lot easier, and since it's random, the Radiant, if they manage to get the Roshan, Radiant have no choice but to charge down a single path. They can't do some sort of sneaky wraparounds or anything like that. And I mean, it doesn't make really any sense. Because also, the team that's going to be ahead, like, this also, I think, slows down the pace of the game. Because why would the enemy team risk going for Rush when they can just, take their time, take more map control, and then just say, well, the enemy team can never go for Rush because they haven't even known if Roshan can just respawn. And if they ever go out and check, well, they're screwed. So, like, this just seems like this is just really bad in my opinion. I don't know what's the point.
Normally what happens is most patches seem to have a theme. And in this patch and in past patches, it seems to be harder to snowball and just win the game off of a snowball. This is the opposite of that. So if it was in theme with the rest of the patch, it would make sense, but it doesn't to me.
Right. So we both don't like this. Again, we haven't seen it in effect, but I've got to imagine with teams like Alliance, Speed, probably I guess not like Navi, because Navi has such good execution team fights that they might be able to overcome surprise situations. Maybe more of the Chinese teams, like they'll just be very calm, very collected. They're just going to sit around farm for a billion years and wait for the 11-minute mark, and hopefully the enemy team will make a mistake before that. Like, the enemy team can't really ever risk themselves going for a sneak Roshan, because they don't even know if it's respawned.
Absolutely. What's next? Because I think that's everything for that.
Starting gold increased from 603 to
This
625.
is this is important, and I don't know why, but it's going to make some more starting build. Like it's going to change some starting builds in some heroes. It's a
Yeah.
very small thing. It's just going to change, but I don't know what it is yet. And I know Salves and Tangos are more expensive, so I guess that covers that.
Random gold reduced by 50. Good for AP. Gold for ending a spree changed from 775 to 600 three times to 10 times to 125 to 1000. So before in the last patch that we talked about, we played a couple games or we went to test client and it was 800 gold for ending a godlike streak. Now it's probably going to be like 1.2k because this is just a streak gold. This is not the additional hero killing gold. So this just punishes snowball heroes who need to snowball like TA, Quap, Ned Stalker, and it just I don't know. I like the 800 because obviously I like having a bit more of a comeback mechanic, but 1.2k almost like a full-on point booster. That just seems a little bit too much. But again, I don't really know how this will affect. I mean, usually people with TA or Quap, they might die in certain scenarios and give up a huge streak, but sometimes they just snowball out of control anyway.
Yeah, I don't like it, but I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think it's a huge deal.
Right. Gold income 1 per 0.6 seconds up from 1 per 0.8. So that's obviously a way to fix
Helps
some of the
out.
neutrals to a certain extent.
Yeah,
And
it's just done to help supports out because something like this, obviously it helps everybody, but carries have income and supports don't, so that's what's going to help. Tower last hit, that doesn't, I think,
yeah,
I don't
I
think it
mean,
means anything.
usually good players will last hit anyway. And I mean, obviously, sometimes good players will miss, but regardless, melee HP regen increased from 2.5 to 5. Range HP regen, this is of course the barracks decreased from 2.5 to 0. Range barracks HP reduced from 1500 to 1200. Armor increased from 5 to 10. So overall, this says I like this because the most annoying part about Dota a lot of times is when a team is knocking at your base. They're gonna go in, hit the tower a couple times with Weaver or Furion, back out, and unless you have a tree, you can't regen the damage, and they're gonna slowly chip away at the building, slowly but surely, and you're just waiting to initiate, and of course they're ready for you to initiate. Now it sort of says, well, you can't really split push as well because the barracks will regen. You can't really, slow siege the barracks. So I like that because, it sort of forces you to commit a bit more than you were before.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And I was a little bit confused about the next change, the HP reduced from 1500 to 1200, but armor increased so that the EHP is the same. It says it's the same effective HP against physical damage.
Yeah.
The only reason I can think of changing it then is if, and I don't know how armor or how his damage is calculated based off of armor, but if someone's hitting that with a Stygian, I would think that it's going to deal either more or less damage, because otherwise I don't understand the point of changing it. And based off the other changes, which seem to be a nerf to Furion, just by increasing regen, I would think that, this is just based off context clues, not actual math, that it's going to be worse against people with Stygian, because Furion builds a Stygian. I could be completely off base. I could be wrong in so many ways, but it's just a guess. I don't actually know how armor is calculated.
Yeah. All I know is that if you have a high enough armor at a certain point, then having the minus armor will help a bit more. I mean, having 20 to 14 is from armor is a lot worse than having 10 to 4. That's all
Actually,
I really
no,
know.
I'm 100% sure that this helps out with Stygian. Because if Stygian's hitting it the way it used to be or is now, it's going to be negative, and now it won't be negative.
Yeah.
It's definitely better in Stygian.
And of course, it's the range barracks anyway, so. Alright, evasion now
Evasion
is.
now stacks diminishingly.
So, PA.
It's not a huge
Brewmaster.
deal, though, because Butterfly isn't even good on PA to begin with because it's attack speed, and then you're going to get an MKB against her anyway. I guess it's okay on Brewmaster if you get a Halberd or something, which kind of makes sense on that hero. That's all I can think of.
Can no longer orb attack while attack restricted, so by OD. Huskar mostly comes to
It's mostly
mind.
Huskar. That's Huskar.
Obviously, makes a lot of sense. The following abilities no longer have automatically ignore backswing time by default: Rupture Malphus, Venomous Scale, Stiffing Dagger, Flame Break, Wave of Terror, Shadow Word, and Power Cogs. So
Here's what this means. You actually have to cancel it after you cast it. It doesn't affect gameplay, it just means you have to click extra.
yeah. So like how Gale you could just cast it and then it would immediately start moving forward. Now you have to actually cast it and cancel it.
Doesn't mean anything.
Alright, I don't know if we necessarily spent too much time, so I think we can go over the heroes. So Abaddon, base armor reduced by 1, miscoil, self damage, blah blah blah, increased. A fog shield is now dispellable. Borrow time no longer activates while doomed. Thank you. So there's a couple things, and when we talk about supports, keep in mind that since this seems to be a 2-1-2, which is dual lanes on both the off lane and safe lane with 1v1 mid, that supports are probably going to get a bit more experience than otherwise meant. So,
Well, I don't think they're always going to 2-on-2. I think it's going to be rare. I think it's going to be a rare option that you can do. I don't think it's necessarily always going to happen at all.
so but now if you trial an Abaddon, he's pretty much untrialable because he'll never get the levels, and the nerf's just going to make sure that he won't get those levels. Or if he does get the levels, then they're not going to mean nearly as much.
I don't know. I don't think that he's necessarily a level 6 support. I think he's pretty good with level 1 and 2.
I don't know. Usually the mana cost and the self-hurt hurts me too much, but I play... You know me, I play as passive as possible, unless I'm on certain heroes, so I'm more inclined to self-persevere, or self-preserve myself.
Either way, I don't think it's a big deal. The borrow time no longer activates while doomed is kind of nice, but Doom isn't that common anyway, and you don't really want to be dooming the support Abaddon unless you really have to, so that you can't dispel your Fiend's Grip or whatever. But anyway,
Yeah.
Alchemist got gutted. This hero is not going to be picked again in this patch, ever. And if he is, it's going to be as a support. He won't be as a carry.
Like, in the rare instances that I only play as a carry, like say in pubs, then you're sort of forced to go for a heart build, or an AC rush.
Yeah, what used to happen... Okay, here's the deal. In TI3, he got picked all the time, right? And won a lot of games.
Yep.
He's not anymore. People just aggro trialing against him. People figured out Timbersaw is really, really good. In the games these days, we really don't see Alchemist a lot at all. He's a pretty rare pick. He's not like that first pick hero anymore.
Yeah, you have to sort of pick
And
him
now
when
that
you
he got
know
this
you're not going to
massive-
be aggressive to Highland against.
Yeah. Chemical Rage no longer provides 750 bonus HP. That's massive. That's huge. You don't have a heart on you anymore, basically. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just don't see... This
It just
hero
seems like
has a
Alchemist is
Lycan treatment.
so tricky to balance, but
It's the Lycan treatment. That's exactly what this is. Lycan was really good, and then Izrael got a hold of him, and then he wasn't ever played again. That's what happened to Alchemist.
so he's pretty much not going to be picked, and that's what we can agree on for the most part. We'll see. AA, Ice Vortex cooldown reduced from 5 to 4, Ice Blast cooldown reduced from 45 to 40. The Chilling Touch buff is always applied to AA. Chilling Touch cooldown reduced. I like AA as a hero. I don't think this will really necessarily change much, though.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't think it's important.
Like, if you put a dual lane mid, then he... I mean, these buffs don't change anything about him. That's the main thing. So, moving on to Axe. I'm not going to lie, I didn't really read it through all of these. A lot of Battle Hunger changes, so looks like the duration is reduced a bit more. The damage is reduced a bit more, but the move speed is increased, and it's now dispellable. The counter helix cooldown is reduced. Counter helix now hits siege units, but now the main thing people are looking at are the Culling Blade changes, which means that if you kill a target, it no longer goes on cooldown, and the threshold has been reduced. The speed bonus has been increased. Basically, the problem with Axes, though, is that if you go in and you cast the Berserker's Call, a couple Battle Hungers, then you won't have enough mana to cast more than one Culling Blade anyway, unless it's late in the game.
Yeah, that hero's got some serious mana problems. And not to mention the fact that the jungle got nerfed. I think overall, it doesn't look so good for Axe.
So I don't think this will necessarily change too much about him.
Yeah,
Battle
it's
Hunger,
still pretty awful.
yeah, Battle Hunger
Outright.
being nerfed even hurts him even more mid. But thank God Battle Hunger was nerfed, because
That was annoying.
yep. So base damage reduced from 48 to 52, 38 to 42, so a 10 base damage nerf. Vision reduced from 1400 to 1200, but then also cast range reduced from 175 to 100, so you literally have to be pretty much on top of them, or right in melee range, rather than just outside of melee range. So we
The
had
last
different...
one Vision's legit, I think.
Yeah, I think it sort of need to be done, and I like that it sort of kept the base gameplay on Bat the same, where, you know, once you get a blink and a force, you can initiate for free. But now he's pretty much unable to go mid ever.
Well, I
And
think he can. It's just...
he can go
you
against
just need to
melees.
you need to get a bunch of stickies on the creeps.
And I like that it sort of encourages you to max sticky, because a lot of times people, you know, get 1 or 2 or 3, 2 to 3.
Yeah. Well, what I don't like about this change is that people don't even mid his Batrider anymore. They just put him in the off lane and then into the jungle. So people are just going to still do that, and you won't even mid his him. Like, there's no reason to mid on him anymore, really.
Yeah, you're gonna
So,
get slower levels, but you'll still get
The Blink
reasonable
Dagger's still going to
simultaneous
come out pretty fast, like 9 minutes at the max.
You won't be a level 9, level 10 Barrier to Blink. You'll be a level 8 Batter Blink at the same time.
And it doesn't even matter. It doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
They still have the ultimate. So I don't think that this addressed Batrider's issues.
I think it
it's
sort
gonna
of helps
pigeonhole them
because
on
now
mid.
it's easier to lane against him mid at the very least, and maybe even easier to lane him in 1v1 matchups in the offlane if such a situation should occur. And now you sort of know he's going to go to the jungle unless you pick a really weak mid.
I guess.
Because the main problem with Barrett is he's too strong in lane and he's the best initiator in the game. Now he's not really that strong in the lane.
And
But
he
he's
can
still-
lane anywhere.
Yeah.
He's still reasonably strong in lane, but you're just gonna jungle him. Like, yeah, it's whatever. So
Moving on,
Beastmaster.
Beastmaster reduced standard AoE, attack speed rescaled, so 45 max. That's pretty cool. Call the Wild now has two separate abilities. This is just cool little changes. So if the Hawk dies, you don't have to spend an extra 10 mana to summon the Boar and the Hawk. You can just resummon the Hawk.
with
That's
the
pretty much-
Roshan change, I think that there's a fairly significant buff to Beastmaster.
Yeah, I mean, Beastmaster's always struck me as like one of the more balanced heroes that Dota's ever created. And
Agree.
anyway, moving on, Bloodseeker. Now he's on speed basically because, well, of course, if the target's below a certain HP, then the speed cap is removed. There's now global. I mean,
It's always 50% now.
yeah, the problem with the Bloodseeker is that speed
You-
never really was his issue, I don't think. I mean, people often build or now are building very heavy mobility builds, so maybe it's going to be a bit more, but problem with Bloodseeker is that he's a single target hero that doesn't do anything against well, I guess now he does against BKB because Rupture goes through magical immunity, but he doesn't really scale super well, and he doesn't really lane super well either, and I don't think this really changes him too much.
I think it just makes him really ridiculously annoying and not fun and bad, but it doesn't fix any of his issues that prevent him from being good competitively.
Yeah.
So it makes him
It's
more
a
annoying, but
it's
not
a
actually good.
it's like a pump
Is how
fix.
it's what this changes.
Yeah. So we don't think he'll be much more viable, but who knows? Maybe if there's
People might start picking him against like Weaver, but I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm skeptical.
yeah. Brewmaster base agility increased from 16 to 22. Drunken Haze affects the 200 AoE around the target. Thunderclap is now dispellable. Primal Split. So if anybody can clear it up, when they say dispellable, like a Phoenix Shield is dispellable, Thunderclap, we assume that you can purge it.
Yeah.
So if anybody knows, then let us know. Primal Split selection now is Earth, Storm, Fire, and we were Primal Split Aghanim upgrade. So we're also assuming, since we haven't checked out the test patch, that the Thunderclap to Earth doesn't replace Boulder Toss. It just means you get both.
Yeah, it's saying it grants, not replaces.
Okay.
So,
So,
I'm
I
thinking
mean-
that you get both, which is pretty legit.
Yeah, I like it. But of course, it's only an Aghanim's upgrade. So
Well, that hero, what else does he build? He gets Mana Boots, Blink Dagger, Ags. I think it's good. I don't think the hero's good. I think he's better.
yeah,
I think that this is one of the changes that I like the most out of this patch. Like the small changes that I think was really solid.
yeah. But I still wish, with the Aghanims, you still got the 26-second duration, because now it's just like, you get a bit of extra AoE damage, but I don't know. We don't think this will necessarily change too much about him, regardless. Bristleback. Attack point improved from 0.4 to 0.3. Viscous nasal glue is now dispellable. Nasal glue cast point increased. That's pretty much the main problem with Bristleback, is that he has cast point on, or an infinite cast point on all of his abilities. Worth Path, max stacks increased. Stack duration increased. Okay.
Fine. It's nice.
Yep.
Doesn't mean anything. It's just nice.
Yep. Moving on to Brood.
Okay, this is messed up. What this is.
Yeah.
But go on.
So let's just say Brood and Slark are not going to be available in Captain's mode. So have fun playing against Brood, because I'm not going to be in games where Brood's involved in pubs. Because
I mean,
Spinweb.
that's what console disconnects for, right? You just leave.
So anyway, Spinweb cast range increased from 600 to 1000. AoE increased as well. Cast point nerfed from 0.2 to 0.4. Who cares? No longer destroys trees. That's one thing. And now you have uninstructed movement when you move under the web. So you can walk through trees. You can walk over cliffs. And you also remove the buffer time when you leave Spinweb. So if there's another web next to you, you will always be very fast. But this approach means Brood will never ever be zoned out. She will always get experience no matter what. There's nothing you can do about it unless cry. You might, and
And it's so easy to block camps as her, except do you even want to? Because now that you get experience, if you're just there, you can't stop her from getting experience from the pull. So I think she might just want to let people pull and not even bother blocking the camp.
So yeah, Brood is unstoppable in the laning
Yeah,
phase.
you
Of course, you can
can't.
deal with her in like the mid to late game, but
You
she
can't do
literally,
it. You can't zone her. She's not zonable.
which is another seemingly making the game easier for Brood and making the game harder for supports in general, which is not very nice.
Centaur.
Yep, increased from
This doesn't
1.25
matter.
to 1.5. The only thing that might matter is that if dual lanes become more popular, then you might see more experience in Centaur. But as it is, Centaur never is getting played. Chaos Knight, Chaos Bolt damage and stun values are now inversely related, which is, neat because he's Chaos Knight. That's pretty much all we could agree upon. No longer 200 damage stun with a 4-second, or 200 damage nuke with a 4-second stun. Now I guess it'll be a 50 damage nuke with a 4-second stun.
Yeah, this was again one of the small things that I thought was pretty cool. I I'm completely down with less RNG in Dota, and this is kind of a way to do it while keeping RNG. Because you had those situations where you're playing CK and go, well, I just got a 2-second no damage stun and he lived, or vice versa. You get the 4-second max damage and the person dies when they shouldn't. I'm totally cool with less RNG, so I think it's cool.
And it also fits Chaos Knight's theme because he's sort of supposed to be RNG.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying it's still RNG, but it's a little bit
Yeah.
more
Fair. Anyway, Chen, Test of Faith teleport is now dispellable, so
What's that
we
mean?
don't know
Someone
what
tell
that
us.
means.
If that means that you can like stun the person out of it, that's a really huge deal, like a massive deal. If it means that you can purge it, I don't know. We don't know what it is. We don't know how easy it is to actually stop Test of Faith from happening. So someone explain that to us, please.
Yeah. All we know is that if all of these means that purged, maybe we'll see like 1 defusal a game rather than 0 defusals a game. Anyway, Searing Arrows for Clinks, damage increased, mana cost increased, no longer blocked by magical immunity, so it's good against against BKB heroes. But I mean, honestly, this won't really affect Clinks' playability.
I actually really like this play or this change because I like to play sneaky little ninja heroes like Clinks and Bounty and Ricky. And one of the biggest issues with Clinks is, yeah, you can go around and pick people off, but once the enemies are like they have 2 BKBs up, you can no longer pick off the people with the BKB because the vast majority of your damage is coming from Searing Arrows, and it wasn't even worth it to go on them. And then then the supports would get their Ghost Scepters up, and then you're just useless. So this is a really good change. I don't think we're gonna see more Clinks, but I like it. I would like to see more Clinks.
Anyway, moving on to Clock, units knocked back by power cogs destroy trees in a 100 AoE around where they land. So that means people can't get stuck in the trees if they get hit by cogs, which makes sense. Why make cogs even more irritating than they already are?
Yeah, I think there are still some issues with power cogs. I think that Clockwork's actually a little bit broken. I've been playing him like every other game. But I think that power cogs not being able to get people just stuck in random areas is pretty good. I think wasn't it at the TI3 where Bulba got some enemy carry just stuck between cogs and something? Was that what happened? Remember when Bulba got really excited because he got some LGD guy stuck?
Oh, I don't know. I remember just seeing Bulba super excited because he hit like 10,000 range hooks every day.
Yeah.
But I assume that's
he also
gotta
got
have
someone
happened
stuck,
once.
and I
Yeah,
think it was against a tree. And it just kind of won the game for them.
maybe. I don't know. I can't really recall. I know that happened with Keep of the Light with Ake, but we'll go over Keep of the Light in a bit. So Crystal Main attacks you, move speed slow. This is both a freezing field. It just makes people more slow. Crystal Main, I think, is going to be more popular than ever with support nerfs since she's
not a
pretty-
level 6 support.
Yeah, and she's a decent roaming support.
Yeah, I think that CM's pretty legit now. Everybody
Yeah,
was
people
saying
pick her
CM
a lot more anyway, so like
People are always saying, "Oh my God, she's so slow, you can't deal with it." But now that tranquils are actually good again on her, and you get the armor, and I don't know, I think she's gonna own. She's like top tier support this patch.
Darkseer vacuum cooldown increased from 24 to 28. More nerfs to vacuum. Really, it's gonna eventually become like a 30 to 40 second cooldown. And,
I'm pretty sure it's gonna be like 90 at some point.
I mean, that's seemingly fine because vacuum. If you manage to set up, you should theoretically win any team fight.
Yeah, well, here's the deal: as long as you hit the vacuum, you don't really need to.
Yeah.
You know?
I guess this is useful in terms of teleporting away from Darkseer, but I don't know.
I guess Icefrog really just wants vacuum to happen one time per team fight and never more. And so some team fights last 25 seconds. Less team fights last 30 seconds.
Yeah. Just going over Darkseer in general, he's probably become, in my opinion, not so much in your. Well, I guess yours.
He's
to a
not so
certain
good
extent.
anymore.
Really, I think he's better because with the sports not getting nearly as much experience and with them sort of being forced to roam. I mean, Darkseer wins 1v2 lanes by himself if dual lanes become more popular.
A lot of heroes do that though. It's not just Darkseer. I think Darkseer, the consistent nerfs to Darkseer for like the past 2 years, I think they're starting to get to him. That hero isn't first pick anymore. You can't first pick him. It's not worth it.
Yeah, and I guess another thing that hurts is the jungle experience, since Darkseer is such an experience-dependent hero, and having less experience means he'll be in the jungle a lot longer.
Yeah. I still think he's a great hero. I think that he's become less just pick him and more pick him if you're going to do something with the AoE.
Which he should be.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Alright, my other one of favorite hero in the game, my favorite support at the very least, Dazzle. Weave duration, rescaled to 20 at all levels. I mean, you're not going to hit level 16 Dazzle anyway. Weave armor per second rescaled, so it's more. Poison touch damage is increased overall. Yeah, that's what it looks like for the first 3 levels. Poison touch is now dodgeable, but the poison touch slow timings reworks, so now level 1 poison is not useless, because before it slowed by 30% for 1 second, now it does for 3 seconds, and does 33 for 2, 66 for 1, and then at level 3, 33 for 1, 66 for 1, and so target by 100%, and then at level 4, it actually stuns the target. So, I love it, because
Yeah, this is legit.
Poison Touch
this is a
was
good
pretty
change.
much useless until you hit level 3. Now it's not useless, and now Dazzle can actually roam, which is, stunning.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to go for Wave Grave at 1 to 2. You can actually sort of switch up the skill build.
Yeah, you can, because 1 point in touch is actually good. When you can get away, I've talked with B-Bone about this a lot. We disagree, but when you can get away with Max and Grave on Dazzle, it's a huge deal. It's just you used to not be able to do that because slow was so terrible. Now that slow's okay, maybe you can do it if you have to. I don't know. Anything's, you can skill this hero anyway.
Yeah, and if there's 2-1-2, then Dazzle, he's not really a level 6 support, but he did need experience before.
He's
Now
like a
he
level
doesn't
10
really
support.
need that much experience anymore, aside from the reduced cooldown on the heal and the increased cast range on Grave. Of course, he'll benefit a lot more from experience than other supports, but I think he's viable now, rather than just being, Dazzle.
Yeah. Death Prophet doesn't matter. It's useless.
Yeah, I mean, I always hate Death Prophet because I always run into the Exorcism and I always die. But 10 extra damage, I mean, she pushes a lot faster and harder.
Yeah, but it's still Death Prophet, so QED.
Yeah.
Disruptor.
I like this again because I like Thrall in general, or Disruptor.
Well, the glimpse cooldown I thought was the biggest deal.
Yeah, the problem with playing Disruptor as a support is that his mana costs so much, and he does want to get the level 6 so he can actually do stuff in team fights. But now with reduced cooldown Glimpse, keep in mind it doesn't really tick in until you manage to get that level 7. But you can actually sort of play him more than just a support, and especially with an Aghanim's upgrade, if you can silence items with Static Storm, well, have fun with Mech, have fun with, Pipe, have fun with whatever you else do, because you can't force step from Kinetic Field anyway. But I think mid Disruptor is very useful now, and keep in mind
I know.
the Thunder Strike, I think it does, I think 250 damage at the first level, and it does over 400 damage at level 4, so it's
I
a
don't
really
think-
strong nuke.
I don't think he's gonna be mid. I think it's just having Aghanims for the sake of having Aghanims. It's cool if you can get to it. So if you're support and you're winning, or if you have a bounty hunter or something, yeah, sure you can get it and it's gonna own, and then they can't BKB out of it, which is one of the hero's biggest issues. But I honestly think that much bigger than the Aghanims was the glimpse cooldown reduction, because 30 seconds is a lot. 20 seconds is not a lot.
But that only matters in level 7.
I mean, yeah, but you usually max it.
Yeah, that's true. Alright, moving on to Doom. Doom cooldown decreased to 110, removes positive buffs.
That's the biggest deal.
Yeah, and 550 to 900.
That's
And
irrelevant.
keep in mind that, a lot of abilities in this patch were made sure that if it's Doom, they no longer work. So Doom is probably going to be as viable as he ever was, which is, reasonably viable. Niche pick. Seemingly
Yeah,
balanced.
some people would pick him as an offlane and then abandon the offlane and jungle with him, and other people would just get him as the second support. Like Navi is one team that likes to do that. I think both are viable.
But the experience of Jungle Doom is going to be even slower. And usually
Yeah,
Doom's weakness is
gonna
that if you
suck.
jungle him, then he's going to be useless until he gets Doom. Now it's going to be even slower. So might force people to actually consider laning Doom in certain scenarios.
Yeah. Drow Ranger. I thought that this was actually a really cool change that has been a long time coming. Basically, what happens now is you're not going to auto push the lane if you have precision aura, so you can max it without pushing the lane and giving the offlaner experience. But then you can turn it on later to affect creeps, so that you can just split push or push fast just by yourself, which is cool.
Yeah, I think Drow is viable. I mean, speed gaming against Fnatic use Drow in a very early, because there's very few heroes that do more damage than Drow as early as possible. So she's viable. I don't think this. I mean, it might make her a bit more viable because you can actually lane with her very effectively. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Earthshaker, this honestly doesn't change anything about him, unfortunately.
I don't think anybody ever looked at Earthshaker and said, "Wow, if you just had a little bit more damage on Enchant Totem, this hero would be great." I don't think that was ever the problem. I don't know. Maybe it's me. I don't think this is relevant at all. And
let's look at it as bro. ET, the extraterrestrial. Ancestral Spirit damage reduced from 120, 160, 200, 240 to 80. So 40 damage at all levels. I mean, I've got to imagine that this change was made in mind before ET became top tier. That's the only reason I could come up with.
Everybody's known that ET was this good for years
now.
No,
people knew that ET was really good. They didn't know he was this good because it took 3 years for them to put him in.
Yeah, I mean, but I remember a video from a year ago where Puppy was talking about ET on a Join Dota stream, and Toby's like, "Yeah, that hero's kind of cool, right?" And Puppy goes, "No, he's a broken piece of shit. He's terrible. He's just so broken." And nobody would believe him. Then ET comes in and he's just completely game-breaking. He ruins Dota. So this is not nearly enough.
All I'm asking for Valve is to make the Spirit not a unit. So you can't teleport in on it. You can't, do all these weird, crazy shenanigans. And of course, nerf him too. But it's just,
what I'm asking for?
Fix the bugs, please. The bugs.
The bugs. The fact that the damage or the aura applies on Spirit before the damage is done. So it's like extra 80 damage or something. I don't know what the math is, but I think it's like an extra 80 damage or so on Spirit once your aura is maxed. And another big issue is I don't think when it comes back you're supposed to be able to stomp, but you can. I don't know if that's a bug or not. I think I was told it was, but I didn't really trust the source. And can we please do something about how good the aura is? Because that's just ridiculous. That's all I'm asking. Just fix the bugs and balance the hero. So just completely rework him, essentially.
Anyway, moving on to Enigma. Unfortunately, these changes, Midnight Pulse DPS increase and giving him an Aghanims doesn't change anything about Enigma because he wants to get a BKB, maybe a Blink to get into better positioning, a mech or Treads as if he wants to get a bit more mana. This doesn't change anything about him. So
it would be super legit, though, if you actually got that far. And I don't think it'll ever happen. But it's definitely going to be cool when I'm just playing, AP Enigma by myself. I'll get the Midas so you can get to the Aghanims.
Yo, if you get a Midnight Pulse on top of the Aghanims Midnight Pulse, it's 56% of the base HP.
Imagine
not
if you get
including
a
the
refresher.
Black Hole. Yeah.
Does Midnight Pulse stack with Midnight Pulse?
That's
so can you drop 2 Midnight Pulses and 2 Black Holes with a refresher?
I'm pretty
Would
sure
that be
you can.
4 Midnight Pulses?
Yeah, well, obviously the first Black Hole, it'll be 2 again. Or it'll be 3.
Either way, I want to do this at some point. I don't think it changes Enigma at all. It just looks really fun.
Enchantress, I mean, the jungle nerfs hurt her more than anything. But, untouchable. It's a skill. It's in the game. Faceless Void doesn't really change too much about Void, unfortunately. Because I always think Void is the best late game carry, but it just takes him way too long to build to that point.
Huskar, I mean, the biggest change for Huskar we already went over, and that's the fact that you can't... Yeah. Or not E-Blade, Ghost Scepter, yeah. But the Agi nerf is really, really good, because that hero attacks so fast anyway. And, you couldn't actually kill Huskar before with Doom. The hero's natural HP regen over...
You mean the magic reduction percentage?
I'm saying, because of the magic reduction percentage, which it gets more as you get lower,
yeah.
Doom deals like 3 damage a tick, and your hero out-regens that naturally. Not even with inner vitality, just with the natural base HP regen. So now you can actually kill him with Doom, which is kind of nice.
But he's still going to be really powerful, which is why I don't think he's in Captain's mode yet.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he's still crazy anymore, but he's still really strong.
Yeah. Evoker, again, I don't know what to think of. I'm not a Evoker player. You said it doesn't really change too much.
Well, I don't know. I still don't think that QW is a viable build, especially without item pooling, which you can't do anymore. We'll get to that later. I still don't think that you can go QW Invoker. I don't think it works. But without the bottle coming, maybe you can. I don't know. We'll see. And the max scales respelled is kind of nice, but that's only really important for a QW Invoker. It doesn't mean anything for QE Invoker. So these are both buffs to Invoker. Because, okay, here's the thing. When you're QE Invoker, the only two spells that matter at low levels, like when you want to do a combo to kill someone really fast, you do the Cold Snap and the Strike, right? You don't have anything else that's worth using. But with the QW Invoker, you do a Tornado, Cold Snap, and EMP. So what you do is you have like the Cold Snap and the EMP on your list. You do both of them, and then you use Tornado, catch up to them, and kill them. That's just in 1v1 mid lane. Obviously, it's different when you're killing someone. But these are both buffs for QW Invoker. And now that I'm thinking about it, the fact that you can't get Bottle until later, and you can't Bottle Crow, maybe QW Invoker is a thing. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, I think the EMP is actually pretty cool that it gives the mana back, because that hero's got such mana issues. So I like it. I think it's one of the better changes.
Okay. I mean, I don't play Evoker, so I couldn't comment. Moving on to Wisp, Tether now does a 100% minus attack speed / move speed slow rather than just a stun. So, I mean, I guess you can still cast, so Wisp can't just get away for free. So, but usually the problem with Wisp is just, teams are learning to play against him, but I don't know.
He's still so good.
Yeah,
he's still going to be picked. It's just, you're just going to get less kills with him because people might TP out,
It's, again, the support experience that's hurting them most, but
actually, this is a bigger deal than I thought, because now that if you don't have a carry that's going to stun them, so Alchemist,
you can
CK,
TP out?
You just TP out immediately when you see the dot. I was just thinking of in team fights, but yeah, when that TP shows up on the map, you just click your TP and you're gone. So now you actually have to pick better Wisp buddies. Like an Ursa, Ursa's not going to stop you from TPing out. Ricky's not going to stop you from TPing out, You, CK and Alchemist seem like the big two, right?
Yeah, and Alchemist is not viable.
And Alchemist is no longer a hero that's in Dota, so it's mostly just going to be CK.
Alright, moving on to Jakiro. Liquid Fire is now a castable orb attack. Same cooldown, no mana cost. I think this is really useful. I like Jakiro as a hero. He's always been, semi-viable, especially with Darkseer and ET. But now, you can actually target what you want to hit. So if you use the orb attack on a creep accidentally, then, tough shit. Now you can actually use it on the tower. So it's a cool change. It won't really change Jakiro, though.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I said that.
It's a quality of life change. Quality of life is how I would say.
Right. I think Juggernaut is super legit now. I mean, he's always been
I think
semi-legit.
it's downright good at this point. I think he's a mid hero with this change. I think you're going to want to play him mid.
Because, healing word move speed increased, Omni Slash cooldown. I mean, a lot of Juggernauts these days go for Aghanim's anyway, so having
The
70
Omni Slash
seconds.
cooldown is why I think you want to play him mid, so you can run around and gank and kill people, and then put your tower down with your ward after, right?
And now you can use items during Omni Slash, so, hey, Mask of Madness Juggernaut is
You can
really...
Mask Madness, yep, which used to be a thing. You can TP out, you can Blink Dagger, which is pubby, but it's fun. What else is there?
Shadow
What are the
Blade.
big ones? You can Diffusal people to slow them down.
Yep. So, I think
Can you
Juggernaut,
Manta?
he's always been relatively legit. Now I think he's super legit.
Yeah, but I think with the Omni Slash being this low, it doesn't really pay to farm with him. And you never really farmed with that hero. You kind of just push down towers. But I think he's a mid now, definitely. Because he doesn't carry. He doesn't do a lot with items, you know what I mean? He's either an aggro tri-lane winner, and then you just push down the tower with ward. But I think now he can be mid. And I'd like to see that. I want to try that out.
Actually, this is
one of my
also...
favorite
I
things
think he
about this patch.
could potentially carry, because Omni Slash no longer stops if the target is 0, so if you have good enough reactions, you just use Diffusal during it, and, well, say goodbye Ghost Scepters.
That's pretty cool, too. I mean, either way, I think the hero's legit.
Yeah. Keep it alive. Alright, buy Aki TI3, big plays. Blinding Light now destroys trees rather than, just keeping them trapped. But I guess if it's off a clip, then they can't really get back anyway. Moving on to Kunkka, these changes don't really mean too much.
Flush Track doesn't...
Yeah, it doesn't mean too much. Bit of damage buff, cast point reduce. Lich! This
oh
is
my
going to
god,
be
what an awful change. Okay, bias is kicking in. I do not like this change.
Yep. So Frost Armor has half effect against range heroes, so that means I assume the slow is going to, tick in, but it's going to be half of that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that the armor is going to be halved, because that wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's just weird.
Sacrifice cooldown is increased. Mana gain is increased. Sacrifice no longer denies enemy experience, but it gives, hey, more experience to you. And if you die from out of experience range anyway, then they're not going to get the experience regardless.
Yeah. This is really big for 2-1-2s. Lich was already pretty good at 2-1-2ing because you just send him to the offlane and then your offlaner is going to get experience. But now what happens is if you do a 2-on-2 and have him plus whatever you want in the offlane together, they're not going to be able to be denied experience no matter what. And then you just back up a little bit, and then you sacrifice it because you're the support lich. You don't have to be getting experience. You back up and deny it. You're going to get experience for denying it, and they're going to lose experience because they weren't ever in
And
range
your
of it
offlane
when
buddy's
it was
going to get
denied.
experience anyway.
Your offlane's going to get experience because he's just last sitting on a tower. He's
No, but he's also going to get the shared experience from the creep.
yeah.
So
It's
this
I don't
is
know.
the one of we always say this every patch, but Lich is going to benefit more than anybody else.
I don't think more than anyone else, but I think that he's going to be picked a lot.
Yep. Anyway, moving on to Nyx, aka Leicester. Rage cooldown increased, makes sense. Open wounds and infest cast points increased as well. So no longer will you have, alright, Leicester is chasing, but they're just about to get away. I'm just going to pop into the creep, explode, and 400 AoE. Well, you're screwed. Now you actually have to sort of take a little bit of time, and people might be able to escape. And keep in mind this is the cast point, so it won't be the infest popping out. It'll be the infest popping in. But Leicester is
It's
still
just
going to be...
nice. That hero,
He's still going to be
something
really
that's
strong.
kind of silly about that hero, to me, is that everything's instant. Rage, instant. Slow, instant. The infest, instant. So it's fun to play him when you're just reacting to stuff and just playing kind of like a fighting game where someone does something and you immediately respond. But it does make him a little bit silly. So this is a good change. I like this change a lot.
He's still going to be picked a lot.
He's picked less and less. He'll still be played, but honestly, I think the biggest issue is the armlet on him, which we'll get to. And that's I don't know. Armlet's got problems.
Yep. Lena attack range increased by 15. I mean, she's 650 range. That's pretty good, but I don't think this will necessarily change too much about Lena's viability. If she's viable, she's viable. She's only picked in certain lineups anyway. Mayan is becoming a good support because Hex cooldown is, it's increased, but now the Hex duration is actually good at level 1. 2.5 seconds is quite a long time.
It's a lot. The 1.75, what happened was you run up to somebody and hex them, and by the time you're in range to do whatever you want, they're almost out of hex. Now that it's 2.5, that's a lot.
And, I mean, at the early levels, you won't really have the mana to use 2 Hexes anyway.
Yeah, so it's not a huge thing.
So Mayan, especially if there's 2-1-2s, he's definitely he's sort of a level 6. He's a level 11 support, I guess.
He is a level 11, but I think he's okay at lower levels now, just because of the hex buffs, especially against heroes like Weaver and stuff.
Yeah, I just fucking hate Lion's model. It's so stupid. Anyway,
It is pretty ugly.
moving on to Bear.
This isn't the end of the world, I think.
For Bear,
Yeah. The XP bounty increase is whatever.
usually you don't get the Bear killed in the early game unless you're very negligent.
Well, no. I've seen Admiral Bulldog feeding his bear, and I don't think there's any better example of a lone druid player. But people pick supports now to kill the bear if you try to offlane. I don't really think lone druid is an offlaner anymore. I don't think he can do it. Maybe with this next patch he can again. I don't know. We'll see. But point is, it's easier to run away with the 315 to 325, and it's easier to actually keep up with your bear if you want to do, because there's a build you can do that's the early phase boots build, but by the time you get them and you want to fight, you don't have any points in Rabid. So it's running around really fast and you can't actually keep up. I think it's kind of nice. It's kind of easier to keep up with it. That's all.
Moving on to Luna, Moonglaive can now bounce back on the same units if it's hit all the other units nearby. Bounce damage is reduced, and Eclipse, Scepter, Beam Count. I mean, if you had Scepter on Luna, then I don't know what you're doing anyway. But I guess the Glaive thing, she's already played or playable, so that's going to make her better at when she is played. I don't think this changes much else, though.
Nope.
Moving on.
Magnus, turn rate improved.
Wait, Wolf.
Oh, wow. I just completely skipped over Lycanthrope. And
Yeah, you would.
He's actually good now.
Yep, armor increased by 1, base damage increased by 5, Howl bonus damage for non-hero units increased, so he's better in, summon push strats, and magic resistance from wolves are increased.
That's the biggest deal, because you could just nuke them down, and it didn't even matter. But
Yeah.
now wolves are hard to kill. You actually have to click them, so
You could still hit them, and they still will die, but you can't just spell them.
you can't just hit the Quap Scream of Pain and then just right-click both of them once.
Yeah. So I think he could potentially be seen a bit more, but only as a safe lane farmer, especially the jungle experience being nerfed so hard.
Yeah, I think he's just for the kind of 1 in a million push strats. Not 1 in a million, but rare push strats.
Yeah. Anyway, Magnus turn rate improved from 0.5 to 0.8, so this is...
Irrelevant.
Really?
It's so that you can turn around and skewer people back.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Doesn't
It's
even
above the
matter.
skewer, but
That's not the issue. It's not the
it's
problem.
the lanes and the early game for Mag. That's the issue. Medusa, Mystic Snake now does pure damage to units in stone form. She's
I thought it was a cool change. I don't know. Medusa might be super legit. I don't know.
well,
That
I
hero
think
might be really good.
I think she has probably like top 5 ultimate in the game, so that might be a
I've
thing.
seen teams use her so well, but I haven't seen her enough either way to really have an opinion on if she's strong or not.
Yep. So I mean, I don't think this necessarily affects her change because pure damage. I mean, that
People
doesn't-
skip Snake anyway because
yeah.
people used to skip Snake because people were abandoning the offlane. So it's like, why even get Snake? Just get the stats. But if people don't abandon the offlane, I think you're gonna want to get it.
And well, mid lane Dusa, you can spam Snake, but that's a mid lane Dusa.
Yeah.
Meepo, base armor reduced by 1, turn rate improved, cast point improved from 0.5 to 0.3, which is, really good because it always took Meepo an eternity to wind up. I don't play Meepo, but I've seen enough replays. Removed 30% stat sharing on non-Aghanim Divide We Stand, and now you get 2 Meepos at level 4, so Meepo is not so terrible in the early game. Of course, you get the third Meepo level 18, but considering how fast Meepo gets experience, I think Meepo is becoming a bit more viable. I just don't know in what kind of
You know what
strategy
this
we played.
is? You know what this is? This is for if you put him in the safe lane. Once he gets level 4, you send your support away, and then he just pulls and gets levels, I think.
Yeah. And I guess, you kill a lot easier because you don't get the 30% stat sharing on non-Aghanims. So that Meepo is actually... Because Meepo has pretty good base stats. He just has really bad stat growth. So that second Meepo is actually difficult to kill in the early game.
No, it's easier to kill.
Really? 30%?
No, removed stat sharing on non-Aghanims. That's a nerf.
So he
Tread-
gets 0
tread
stats,
something
or
else
does he get all the stats? Oh, it would be 100% if he got all the stats. Ah,
Yeah.
I see. Alright,
So
that's a nerf.
it's easier to kill them early, but once you get Aghanims, it's just fully shared.
Yeah. But a lot of Meepos go Aghanims anyway.
I
But
mean,
you want
you get
straight up-
Aghanims first item.
Yeah,
is what
you-
you do on that hero now. Because even the people who are really good at Meepo stopped getting like Blink Dagger and stuff like that, and they're like, why shouldn't we just get Aghanims and farm, and then we can just click people and it's easier? And it is. I'm not flaming anybody. It's just easier to get Aghanims and click people. Anybody can play Meepo. Anybody who's a decent farmer can play Meepo at an okay level, regardless of micro, just because you get Aghanims and you get like a heart or something, and then you just click people, and it's really, really easy. So
Yep, so moving on to Mirana, leap AoE MS/AS is increased at the cast location, so if you're leaping out and if your ally is there, then they might have a chance to escape. I think that makes sense, because, you can't really target how far leap will go, because oftentimes you just panic and use it. Obviously, pros know how to use it a bit better, and the attack speed bonus is actually very significant, so Mirana can actually do a bit of right-click damage. So,
yeah, and I thought she was kind of buffed as the offlane.
yeah.
I mean,
we
you
might
can
see
still
more
block
Mirana, the old school Mirana Sanking lanes.
Yeah, those were legit.
Yeah.
But it's recently come to attention that you can block camps with arrow, which I guess people always knew, but no one did it until Bone 7. That guy's so silly. In a good way. But you can just block camps with arrow now, and I think that hero's legit in the offlane.
Yeah, and ultimate means free smoke gank every so often.
Well, I don't think it's best used as a smoke gank. I think it's best used as a, let's just move up right next to them. Because people compare it to smoke a lot, and this is a little bit off topic, but smoke is to move through ward spots. You don't really do that with Mirana. You use it to move right up next to people and then kill them,
Yeah,
I think.
that's true. Anyway, moving on to Morphling, because that discussion, I guess, even though I brought it up, doesn't have anything to do with the changes. Morph, that's not going to fix anything about Morph, the turn, shift, whatever, and it's level 4, so... Riptide AoE for Naga, this doesn't change anything about how Naga was super broken, so... I don't know what the point... this doesn't
Well,
change.
it's a little bit, because a lot of times, once you hit mid to late game, you don't ever actually put your hero next to people as Naga. You just put your illusions next to people and then click your Riptide button. Your illusions actually have to be right on top of people as opposed to be chasing them at this point, I think. That's all.
But still, she's...
It's not important at all. She's still really, really good.
Moving on to Furion, or Nature's Prophet. Trans experience bounty increased from 20 to 30. Gold bounty increased from 12 to 16, 14 to 20. This doesn't change too much. But the jungle nerfs hurt him quite a bit.
Yeah.
Even though he
And
still
honestly, the
gets fast
Shadowblade
minus.
nerf is the biggest
Yeah,
nerf.
we'll go over that in a bit. Necrolite base armor increased by 1. Still not going to be playable. Remember the other patch? We said he's going to be the surprise. Well, we were wrong.
Well, he wasn't. We were wrong.
Well, unless darkness causes any... Well, we can both agree that Necrolite won't be played, right?
Yeah, I don't think the hero's... I mean, I think the hero is actually good, but it's just so... I don't know. A lot of heroes that are good are just so out there and not standard that a lot of teams don't even bother practicing it. Because why practice a weird hero that you'll play one game in 20 as opposed to a hero that's just really good 19 games out of 20, you know?
Moving on to NS, darkness causes enemy vision to reduce by 25%, affects heroes, creeps, and wards. The problem with the darkness, I mean, this is cool because it reduces the vision, and Night Stalker, of course, you can just sort of dance around, initiate ganks a bit easier, and if the enemy team does get enough vision, the problem with darkness is that it's level 1, and level 1 cast is just so pathetic. Like 20-second duration for 180. Yeah, you don't get it like unless you need to get it to escape.
Yeah, in weird situations.
I've gotten at level 6 if I need to escape, but that's the only situation.
No, I won't. I used to get it if I had a really good pre-first night, like the first day, and got a kill for some reason, and then I got a rune and was like, oh wow, I can gank this enemy Weaver, but it needs to be nighttime. That's like the only time I would ever get it. Now I think you just get it at 10-11 no matter what.
But
which is what you normally used to.
Yeah, but now at level 10 or 11, it's going to be approaching the third night, which is...
Oh god, that's ridiculous. The whole day-nighttime thing it doesn't make any sense. Whatever.
Yep. Moving on to NA, Spike Carapace no longer stuns a hero when some units proc it, so that makes sense. Impale no longer has unit targeting, it's now only a point-targeted spell. Don't really know what the rationale behind that was. I guess you can't get as many, long duration or long-range impales. You have to hit them right on top of it.
Which is kind of cool, I guess. I don't.
Well, it's a slight nerf.
It is.
It's a slight nerf. Ogre, ignite duration increased by 1 second at every level, now dodgeable, can multicast to a random enemy unit that's not debuffed by it, and Unrefired and Fire Blast cooldown reduced from 10 to 6. Ignite is pretty much the worst spell that Ogre has anyway, so I don't think this necessarily changes too much about Ogre.
Yeah.
Omni.
Omni Knight, this doesn't even matter. It's degen, and it's Omni Knight. It's the worst ability on a bad hero, so that's whatever. Outworld Destroyer, this is important. Base damage reduced by 3. That's completely irrelevant. Items no longer trigger Essence Ore. That is relevant. Because the whole Tranquil Buckler thing was a way that you could skip Bottle. I don't think you can skip Bottle anymore in OD.
Well, now you can't even Tranquils because it's not an activatable ability.
Yeah.
But the problem with OD is that you can't Bottle Crow against him now. So the problem with OD before is that you could sort of hold your own for the first 3 levels. Now you can't do that because you can't Bottle Crow. So
I was hoping to see like a base move speed reduced by 20. And items no longer trigger and base damage reduced by 6. But this is what we got, so...
He's still going to be very
He's still going to be real good.
Yeah. We're seeing a little bit less of him, but he's still going to be really good.
Well, we're seeing less of him because he's banned every game.
That's true.
Phantom Assassin.
Yep. Stifling Dagger shares the same crit chance factor as Coup de Grace. Stifling Dagger is now dodgeable. Stifling Dagger damage rescaled from 50, 100, 150, 200 to 60, 100, 140, 180. So, I mean...
I don't understand why this was a change, but it was.
Yeah, so you get a pure damage nuke that does 4 times... Well, not 4 times. I guess...
It's 5 times, right?
That's at the max level, though.
Yeah.
But it's Spam Dagger Harass, pure damage. So if you get the 2 times or 2.5 or whatever it is at level 1...
It's going to deal 450 at max rank.
Yeah, but even at level 4, when you're just level 7, it's going to do... Yeah, it's going to do so much damage. And it's
what's
such
the
a short
crit at level 1? Is it 2.5?
I think it's 2.5. So
it'll do 250 pure damage.
Yeah.
I understand that this is a way of keeping that nuke relevant throughout the game. I just think that it doesn't address any issues that Phantom Assassin actually has, which are the fact that she can't farm fast at all, and if you aggro Trilane against her, she won't get anything. And I don't know. It doesn't... It's just like a random buff. I don't see why it would buff
usually when we talk about balance changes.
Issue.
Yeah, when we talked about it...
Phantom Assassin doesn't have a bad late game. That's not what the problem is.
I guess this way you can kill stuff a bit easier than when you hit level 6. But that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Phantom Lancer, Spirit Lance is now dodgeable. Why?
Okay,
I mean, it's just sort of a parity thing because not everything's dodgeable, but PL's not even good anymore.
The hero isn't a good hero, and the only thing that was kind of cool about him at this point was if there's an anti-mage, and you throw the thing, he blinks away, and you kill him anyway. That's it. That's the only thing that he really had going for him, was that you can still get kills on people who are kind of ninja-like. Now you can't. I don't understand why there was a need to nerf Phantom Lancer when he's already a bad hero. Again, I feel like a lot of these changes
we're pub centric because a lot of people in pubs just hate playing against PL because he's real strong in pubs. But in actual competitive games, PL is not a problem.
Well, you've seen some of the changelogs in the past where Spirit Breaker or Bloodseeker got nerfed because obviously Ice Fog is primarily balancing for the competitive scene, but he does care about the public environment because that's what 99.5% of the games are played as.
I agree that. See,
But
the way
this
that I would say
change,
it
I don't
is,
even think he's that good in pubs anyway, if you
I
know
don't
how to
think
play
he's
against
in
him.
pubs. People who complain against him in pubs are the kind of people who don't get dust. So, anyway, Pudge.
Yep, can use Blink, gets free pathing for 5 seconds if you hook onto an unpathable ledge. Magic resistance is reduced. Aghanims, or no, December, yeah, it's the Aghanims upgrade. So Blink Pudge is legit,
It's a
and
thing.
I mean, people have been asking for this for a while.
What's going to happen is you just blink onto them, you instantly dismember, and then you hook to finish it. Which I think is dumb. It kind of takes a lot of skill out of the hero. But whatever, to each his own.
Yep,
I
so
don't think that it's core on Pudge, to be honest. I don't think that people will get it. I think people will still prefer Force Staff. Or not people. I think Dendy will still prefer Force Staff, is what I was trying to say. Because it lets you get away. Blink Dagger doesn't let you get away, especially because Rot disables your dagger. I think that Force Staff's still the way to go. But that's just me. Because if you blink onto someone to initiate, that's not the point of Pudge. The point of Pudge is to drag someone out of position, not to just blink on someone and instantly kill them in the mid game. So this is, I think people are going to do it so that they can just get easy kills in mid game without having to have a lot of skill. But it's not good for late game at all, I think.
does it
It
affect his
might be in that
viability?
you can... No,
Alright,
I don't think it does. Maybe people will be really good and not blink onto people, but blink to a different location, like to the side, and then hooks. But I don't know. I still don't think it's the way to go.
alright, moving on to Pugna. Decrepify damage amplify on allies reduced from 40 to 25. Damage on enemies increased from 40 to 50. Netherward now requires 3 hits. And Life Drain restores mana if you're at full HP. I always think Pugna is a very good option in a lot of situations because he's a very strong pusher and he has Netherward. But
But it just dies.
yeah,
He feeds and dies. That's kind of what the hero does.
well, I don't think this necessarily changes too much about him, unfortunately, being a Pugna fan.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those heroes that has no way of protecting himself. You know what I mean?
Yep. Moving on to Quap, Shadow Strike mana cost rescaled from 80, 100, 120 to 140. We'll just go over this very quickly because I know you play Quap a lot, but usually you only get 1 or 2 points into Shadow Strike. Now you have to spend 30 extra mana if it's level 1, 10 extra mana if it's level 2. Any closing thoughts? I mean, it's obviously
it's
a
a
nerf.
nerf. This is a nerf.
Yeah.
By the time you actually have it at rank 3 and 4, you usually have an item like Orchid, so it doesn't matter. It's just a nerf in the laning phase. You spend more mana.
Which I think is justifiable, especially since Quap will win the lane, especially with the Ball Crow being nerfed so heavily.
Yeah.
Ricky, Smokescreen cast range increased from 425 to 550. Ricky no longer revealed out of permanent invisibility where you cast spells or use them. I've always thought Ricky's super legit anyway, because next to Shadow Fiend and Drow, he probably does the most damage in the game. He's just squishy and melee.
I think this hero is actually legitimate. He's pretty good against a lot of carries that are in the pool right now. Just as he counters just a lot of the carries, and he's online from minute 10 earlier. You know.
Now,
So-
with the item thing, you can cast the Manta and you won't be revealed instantly.
Well, people don't get Manta. There's no reason to
Yeah.
get Manta.
Well, invisible illusions.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a thing.
people, but nobody plays in competitive Dota anyway.
Loda did, and he owned.
Yeah,
He
Loda
beat
did.
down Navi with Ricky.
Well, Loda plays every carry well, so.
That is true. Rubik.
Rubik, Telekinesis cooldown increase from 18 to 22. Can no longer steal the Aghanim Scepter upgrade if they have Aghanim and he doesn't. If you get Aghanims, cooldown is reduced 5 seconds, increase from 1001 to 1400, and makes all stone spells have their Ags upgrade. This is
a fairly significant nerf, I think. The telekinesis cooldown's actually, it's a lot. 4 seconds is a lot. And no longer being able to steal Aghanims. There's a lot of heroes that you just don't build Aghanims against because you're like, well, they have a Rubik, so I'm not going to get Ags. It's pretty straightforward. But the fact that you can actually get Ags now on Rubik is pretty cool. I don't think that you'll actually do it as... Because Rubik still isn't going to be a mid hero. He's not going to go back to mid. Ice Frog nerfed his mid status, so you just can't do it. You'll lose mid terribly. So that's not going to be a thing. But if you can somehow get the Blink Dagger and the Ags on a support Rubik, like if you're winning really hard, it'll be a lot of fun to play. It's just hard to do. And it's not really relevant.
Alright, moving on to Sand King. Sandstorm DPS increased by a bit. Epicenter attack speed slow is not the same as move speed slow. I think Sand King overall benefits a bit more from the general changes as support, because he roams reasonably effectively, and he definitely benefits from delaying experience. But these changes don't really make him. I think the other changes make him a bit more viable.
Yeah, it doesn't fix any of his problems, and his problems are that he's not good until like level 5.
Yep.
Level 3, he's sort of okay. Level 5 is when he starts to get online, but his issue is the fact that level 1, the range on the level 1 stun is like non-existent.
Yep. It's 350, I think, or 375, something like that.
It's not even there. Shadow Demon. This is
SD.
completely irrelevant.
Yep. We increased by 10. Shadow Shaman. Mass step and word count increased from 8 to 10, and there is a picture somewhere. Do you have the
Yeah, you
link?
should probably link that. I don't have it on me. It's
Oh,
in my. It's in one of my screenshots.
I'll probably
I'm not
put
gonna
a link
scroll
in
for it, but-
annotation, but basically there's
It's
10
even
words, but
easier
there's a
to
little
word trap.
gap. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then there's a little gap right here. I'll put a link in an annotation. So
I don't understand why it was easier. Why it was made easier to ward trap. Like my friend who had never played Dota before, Dota 2, that is, played maybe 20 games of Dota 1. First game of Dota 2, he picked Shadow Shaman. And I said, okay, so there's this really pro thing that you can do where you can ward and to kill someone. You got to predict where they're moving and click exactly right. He does it every single time exactly right because it's really easy in Dota 2 to ward trap people. It is. It's just easy to do. You just click on them. It's not hard at all.
do you
Now
think
it's even easier.
do you think the gameplay changes with the 2-1-2? If it becomes more popular, do you think we'll see him a bit more? And with the ball crow being nerfed?
I think Chinese teams might just start to run them, but I've talked to you before about what issues I think this hero faces, and it's the fact that he's food. You can't get people off him. He has no defensive mechanisms, and he has to be right up next to people to do anything, except he's also really, really slow. I don't think he's that good in the 2-1-2 to begin with, simply because most offlaners can man up on him. So, I don't think that he's good, to be honest.
Alright, moving on to Silencer. Intelligence Seal is an innate part of the hero rather than an element of Glaives of Wisdom. I hate Silencer anyway, but I don't think this necessarily changes them too much because teams like Empire will still run him as regardless. Other teams will not.
I mean, you already get it. You get Glaives at level 2 max, usually.
Yeah.
So, it's not the end of the world.
Skeleton King.
He lost his Mortal Strike active.
Yep.
Which I thought was a really cool thing, but he no longer has it. He has more base int, which actually fixes a lot of his problems. And now you get ranged on Vampiric Aura and Reincarnation is better.
Yep.
He's still useless. The only thing that
The problem with Skeleton King is that he's clunky, he can't move around any single target. And now I think he might maybe be played as support because the base intelligence increased. And with the aura now giving ranged units, but that seems very unlikely unless you pair him with somebody like a Drow or I guess an SF.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I was in some NAL games. This hero was being used as a counter to counter Alchemist, believe it or not.
With
Just
the Mortal
because
Strike.
Mortal Strike, yeah. And Alchemist isn't a thing anymore, but this was like the only use for that hero. Like I was excited. I was in games. My captain picked me Skeleton King one game. I was excited to get to play it, and then we're never gonna play it again. But whatever. I don't know. I liked Mortal Strike. I thought it was a cool ability. Are you there? I cannot hear you. I think your mic is muted.
Oh, I said one button, Skeleton King's back online. Anyway,
Yes, it is.
Moving back to Skywrath. Ingrowth increased by 0.4, and Aghanim's means you have 0-second cooldown on level 3 Mystic Flare, which is cool. It costs 1 billion mana, but it doesn't fix any problems with Skywrath, but it's more fun, I guess.
It's fun. I'm definitely making an account so that I can do this with the Enigma thing.
It doesn't
Just for them.
Yeah, it doesn't affect his viability at all.
No, he's still terrible. Slardar.
Yep, amp damage increased by a bit. By 2 and 1. Oh my god, I just looked at it and I'm so sad because I like Slardar. Sprint speed increased. Okay, who cares? It only really matters until you hit that level 3 and level 4. Sprint mana cost removed. Alright, that's a little bit better. Problem with Slardar is that 15% is just too much. Before, when Slardar was semi-viable, I just decided to nerf him, and I'm talking about maybe 2 years ago, so that's 10%, or it was 10% damage at all levels, now it's 15% at all levels. And he is a melee hero who has to be in your face, unless you build like a very fast Vanguard or a Blink or a BKB, then he's going to take so much damage that you're going to get to stop and then you're going to die. And this doesn't change anything about it.
Yes.
and that makes me very sad. Because Slaughter, before the changes happened, I guess maybe 1 or 2 years ago, he struck me as the quintessential balanced hero in Dota. This is, of course,
And
2 years
he's
ago.
just weak.
Now
Yeah.
he just sucks.
I don't know. This doesn't. None of these things address any of his issues, except sort of the mana cost, because he had mana problems. But that's not anywhere close to being his biggest issue.
Yep.
Slark.
This is
Okay.
this is your territory. I don't play
I'm
this
pretty
hero.
pissed off about this. Here's why. The whole point of Slark as a hero is that you run around the map and kill things, and you have 15 kills, and you have 30 creeps. It's kind of the thing, because if you look at the hero and all of his abilities are low cooldown abilities, low mana cost, and he's got a lot of regen. Stuff like that encourages fighting nonstop. And I think that that's fair, right? You see a Slark, you just want to fight nonstop on him. The issue now, though, is one of his best abilities for escaping is now on a 65-second cooldown, which is a lot. It takes forever to have that be back up again. So I think if you're playing him as a mid now, you gank a lane, and instead of continuing to fight and like go through their jungle and look for people or TP to another lane and fight, you just go back mid and farm. You're not going to want to fight when that's not up. I don't understand the point of this change. I don't understand why it was increased that much. Obviously, it was because now you can't reveal Shadow Dance. So now supports are even going to be more sad than they
But
already
it's worth
were.
almost tripling the cooldown. And you're obviously saying, no, it's not. Because
It's-
I have to agree with you.
A support's going to die in 4 seconds. The 5.5 to 4 seconds doesn't matter. A support's just going to instantly die, and you can't protect yourself. Putting down sentries doesn't mean anything. Having a gem doesn't mean anything. Even on tower, he's just going to go and kill a support. And the supports are going to be like, this is the most broken thing in Dota. Because they're already going to be underleveled from the stupid pull changes. And now this, I don't understand why it's good. And it makes him worse as a hero, but it also makes him more annoying to play against. And that's like the worst combination of balance changes. To make something worse but more annoying, I don't get it. People might start playing him in some like weird cheesy strategies, but it completely removes a point of the hero in that he can just fight non-stop from the 10-minute mark.
I have to agree with you. I don't play Slark much, but tripling the cooldown, reducing the duration by 1.5 does not justify, considering he's very rarely picked regardless. Like
It's tripling the cooldown as the
Yeah.
issue. Yeah.
Moving on to sniper range bonus. I mean, I think you can probably shoot across Thurver now. Won't really affect sniper now. I mean, at a certain point, he's gonna get 1,000 range, so might as well just accept it.
Yeah, the take aim isn't the problem with Sniper.
Yep.
I think everybody can agree with that. Spectre.
Spectre. I wanted to test this out, but Dota 2 test was not working for me for whatever reason. But you can now continuously use Reality on Delusions and Reality
This is
Cast Point.
cool.
Yeah,
This is cool. I
'cause-
like this.
Yeah, so what I was wondering, and I don't know if you guys can help me out, is if you use Reality on Illusion and then you Reality to a different illusion, will the illusion disappear entirely from the first one that you Reality'd from, or will another one take its place? Because if it could, if another one took its place, then you could feasibly just spam click Reality all over the map and give yourself a little bit of extra burst damage. But obviously that won't really happen.
I mean, I still think it's better to just kill one person then switch to the next. So
Yeah.
if you're trying to use it to kill a low support HP running away, you go there and you click her twice, and then you just go back into the fight, which is a pretty big deal. I think Spectre is already an okay-ish hero. Like, the hero's better in the mid-game now that people are doing the dispersion build. Or not the dispersion build, the Desolate build. And I think that this hero's legit. It's not going to be, obviously first picked even frequently, but I think it's a pretty good hero.
I think it makes it more fun, because you can just mess around now. And before
Yeah, that's
Spectre,
the way of looking at it.
like, weren't able to have fun until level 6. Now, you can have more fun at level 6. It's cute.
Spirit Breaker. This is one of the better nerfs
Yeah,
in this patch.
base attack time nerf from 1.7 to 1.9. People might be saying, well, he's not picking competitive. He's still annoying as hell in all aspects. He's probably the quintessential pub stomper. And
He's in every IXDL game ever, and it's the worst thing. Because this hero's running around with 2k worth in items, or like treads earn, and your carry's got like BKB Yasha, and he's just perma-bashing your carry and then just killing them. It's ridiculous.
And the ultimate now, you can actually stun it.
Yeah, it's not undodgeable.
Right.
Or not undodgeable, but you can stop him.
Yep.
And the base attack time was good, and the Nether Strike change was even better.
Right.
Why Ice Frog, though, felt the need to nerf Sven?
Like, this
Of
is a
all
common thing in
heroes.
Dota 1. Like, even in Dota 1, if you had the skills to pay the bills, you could use Mirana Leap to escape from every single target ability, aside from Stormhammer. Now,
Yeah.
now it's just like, well, you can dodge it.
It's
And
now dodgeable.
Sven, the cooldown 15 to 13, whoop-de-frickin' do. Sven has so much mana they can cast 2 Storm Bolts anyway in the early levels. Like,
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Why was this made dodgeable? I get a lot of things were made dodgeable, but you better give Sven some serious buffs to make up for it. Not like 15 to 13. I'm talking about like doubles the damage, not doubles the damage, but you know what I mean, like something good to make up for the fact that his stun is now awful.
Yeah, and this just cements the fact, unless Dylan's really come back to in favor, where you're going to see, like, I don't know, Sven Lina.
Sven Lina, yeah, that's legit.
Well, then he's never going to be played. So, I guess Sven fans will have to accept that. Tidehunter, Kraken Shell, Damage Block increased a bit more. Honestly, this doesn't really change him too much.
Well, you know what some teams have been doing? Well, just North American teams. I haven't, I don't know about Euro teams, but some like decent amateur level North American teams like running Tidehunter as a safe lane solo, get the ultra fast blink mech on him, and just destroy people around the map. And here's the thing about him. He's incredibly strong as a safe lane solo because of Kraken Shell and Anchor Smash. You can't ever fight him because he's going to block damage and reduce your damage. And because it's such a low mana spell, he's just going to destroy like every single lane in a 1v1. This is just even more in that direction. Obviously, it's not amazing. It's not a big deal. But I feel like I've lost enough lanes to solo safe lane Tidehunters that I'm a little bit sick of that hero and his Kraken Shell. He's not even good. But I think it's kind of nice that it pushes him in that direction of like the safe lane solo, get the fast items up, and just team fight nonstop.
Alright, moving on to Timbersaw, mana cost increased by 25 variable, so obviously it's still relatively spammable, you just can't spam it every single time. So, I think
It's spammable, it's just not,
he's still going to be...
It's a nice little change.
Yeah, he's still going to be useful.
Tiny
Tiny...
is cool. It's not a big deal, but it's cool.
Won't really change much about him, because level 1 Cry Exterior is better, because it gives 6 to 10. The stun duration is obviously nice, but it won't really change Tiny at all. Tree is now, I think, worthless, because Leech Seed, damage per pulse reduced. That's not matter, because the duration is, or the number of pulses has been increased, and the duration has been increased as well. Living Armor cooldown is rebalanced from 15 to 32, 26, 20, 14. So now, until you manage to get that level 3 Living Armor, then the cooldown's way too long. And Living Armor mana cost has been increased as well. Tree is obviously...
the hero's garbage, too.
Yeah, he just needs to be remade for the 80th time.
Yeah, the Living Armor was kind of a coolish idea, except it was really weak, and then he buffed it so that it was amazingly overly strong, and now it's useless again.
Yeah, so basically, if you look at Tree's current design, he's designed to win the early game so hard that you'll never ever look back. Because if you look back, then you're done, because Tree is not very useful after that stage. Now, he's not even going to win you the early game super hard, because the cooldown's too much and the mana cost. If you're ever forced to spend a Leech Seed at any time, then you won't be able to spend Living Armor at all. So.
Okay, Troll Warlord.
Yep, Berserker's Rage move speed bonus rebalance from 20, 20, 30 to 10, 20, 30, 40. Whirling Axe's melee damage reduced from 125, 175, 225, 275 to 75, 125, 175, so 50 at all levels.
It's a big deal for mid, and actually for aggro tri-lanes. Because that hero was pretty good at doing both of those things, and now he's not quite as good. That was a lot of damage on that nuke. But also, there are three schools of thought on Troll Warlord. One is the 1-4-1 build into stats, which I've never been that partial of. One is doing 1-4-1 into maxing Berserker's Rage. And most people who did this basically just did it if they were doing a Lothar's build. And they did that so that basically if you get a bash at any point when you Lothar's up to someone, the person just dies. Because the bash duration goes way, way up. And then there was the farming build, which is where you maxed Fervor. I think most people are going to max Berserker's Rage now, basically, because of this. And it kind of toned him down in aggro tri-lanes.
Yeah, I think outside the laning phase, and the ultimate in terms of pushing, Troll is pretty balanced, because you can...
I think he's a little bit too good, but with this change, I think he's going to be right where he needs to be.
So, I think that's a pretty good change. Tusk, Frozen Sigil now requires a constant number. It's 3344 instead of HP. This won't change him at all. Frozen Sigil wasn't really the problem. Undying, Decay, Steel Duration increased to 40 seconds at all levels. I don't think this will necessarily change too much about him. If there are 2-on-2, then we might see more Undying, because you will be able to get that level 7 and level 4 Tombstone up a bit faster. But I don't know. I just want to see more Dirge. He's pretty fun to watch.
It's cool. Venge now can use Blink Dagger, which I've been asking for forever. I don't know how good it is. I don't know if it's going to work. But it's a cool idea that you can do it, but
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously the Pudge and Venge things were Dota 1 relics because people, you could share couriers, but if you didn't like the person, you could unshare and, you could just unstuck. But now it's Dota 2, 3 years after it comes out. It seems perfectly logical that you can use Blink on Pudge as well as
Yeah.
Venge. Alright, Veno. Poison Nova no longer ignores Invis as fog units. Venoscale no longer ignores Invis units. Venoscale damage over time rebalanced to 0 at level 1. Huh, interesting. I just noticed that. Poison Sting duration increased from 6, 8, 10, 12 to 6, 9, 12, 15. Poison Sting DPS no longer dispels healing or disables dagger. Plague Wards now have Poison Sting for 50% of the damage at the current skill levels, but I have to assume that it doesn't have the slow. And Plague Ward's experience bounty increased. I don't know if this necessarily changes too much of a Venomancer now that I'm looking at it.
I don't know what the skill build is on Venomancer anymore because it's a lot of damage if you max scale, but you also want to have wards maxed so that they don't suck. And you also want Poison Sting maxed so that your wards don't suck. So I don't know what the skill build is. We'll have to play with it. I don't know.
So
I
Viper,
think it's good buffs. It's
yeah,
good buffs.
but yeah,
Viper was, I think, the winner of the patch.
yeah, Viper poison attack cooldown reduced from 4-3-0-0. We'll talk about more about Viper a little bit. Corrosive Sting no longer works while Doom makes sense. So you can just spam the Rasen without taking aggro. But the other thing is, well, we'll get to it later on, but the Flying Courier change. So Viper should theoretically slam mid until the 3-minute mark, and by that point you should have such an advantage that you should win every mid lane matchup.
Yeah, the thing is with Viper, you want your orb attack to be to 0 seconds. So you want 3 in that.
Yep.
That's just so that you can harass. You also want 2 another toxin at least, so that you can outlast hit people. But you also want points in corrosive skin, so that whenever someone harasses you, they take more damage than
And
they
he's
do.
not a flash farmer, so if you ever die with Viper, then you're gonna get your skills build slowed down.
Yeah. So normally what you used to do was like a 3-1-1 or 3-2-0. I actually myself, I would do in most lanes that weren't like a Queen of Pain, I would do a 3-1-1. But then you don't have a lot of damage to outlast hit people. Now you can do a 1-3-1 and just deal massive amounts of damage, have the orb block, and have the ranking corrosive skin. I think that, and he was already being played. Like, I saw Navi pick him a while ago. He's picked in in-houses a lot. I think that this hero is legit, and I think he's the winner of the patch, just because you don't have to put in points into poison attack unless you really, really want the slow. And you can actually get other points. I've been waiting for this change for a really long time, and now that it's happened, I think the hero's legit.
Yep. And he was already semi-legit. Now he's legit.
Now he's legit, yeah. He's like actually going to be picked a lot, I think.
But the main thing is, I think, probably going to be expounded upon later on. Base armor for Visage reduced by 1. Base magic resistance reduced from 25% to 10%. Visage, always annoyingly tanky. Still going to be annoyingly tanky initially with the Gravekeeper's Cloak. I think this is a nice change, but he's still going to be played quite hard, I think.
I think so too.
Alright, moving on to Warlock. Fatal Bonds now links the closest units to the initial target instead of randomly choosing targets in its AoE. Upheaval cast range, upheaval is a garbage spell. Well, 1200 is a bit more, so that's nice. Upheaval duration increased from 10 to 12. Chaotic offering 100 impact damage has been removed. Golem armor has been increased, and the mana cost has been increased. I don't know why there's so many nerfs on Warlock. He's another pub stomper, but
I don't get it.
yeah.
It's not like he's a good hero, so.
You know what's... I think I said this to you, but people always say, well, upheaval's so good because there's this one Tifa I had. Well, usually spells are supposed to be better than more than one situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you've told me that before. It's like,
Yep.
yeah, I got this one team fight and I got a full duration, and I was like, oh, well, what about the other 30 team
Yeah.
fights?
I think I was arguing that with Warren, saying upheaval is the worst spell in the game. And he said, no, you're stupid. And that might be so.
Well,
Anyway,
that's Warren, so.
moving on to Weaver. Base attack time nerfed from 1.7 to 1.8. This doesn't
I
change
don't think
anything
it's a
about
big
Weaver.
deal. Yeah.
We both don't like Weaver because... What'd you say about him? He has every rune in the game.
His abilities are runes. He's got a double damage rune, he's got an invis rune, a haste rune, and he has a regen rune with his ult. I don't think it's a problem. I think he's a good hero. I think he's too good, honestly. But I love playing him. I've always had fun playing him. I just think he just needs some Sakuchi reworks. I think Sakuchi's a little bit too good.
Moving on to Windrunner, Focus Star remains sticky on the target cast on, so you can change targets, but if you go back to the original target, then you need bonus attack steal soon. I think Windrunner will be played if there's more 2-1-2s, because she's, a pretty viable offlane support, or some something like that. I don't think Focus Fire will necessarily change anything about her though.
No, I think that the offlane changes are way more important than the focus fire change.
Anyway, Witch Doctor, Death Ward cast range increased from 400 to 600. Mood Restoration increased from 350 to 500 the AoE. The Restoration mana cost has been reduced from 8, 14, 20, 26 to 8, 12, 16, 20. 50% of the heal amount. 50%
Too bad
of
he's
the
still
heal amount.
awful.
50% of the heal amount. Why? Paralyzing cast now lasts 5 seconds on illusions. Actually, you know what EG does with Witch Doctor? They actually pick him
They
a decent
farm.
amount. No, they don't. Well, they farm with him, but basically they max cast, get 1 point of Voodoo Restoration, get rest stats. Just stats, because Maledict is not useful.
They don't even get Maledict?
No, they just get 4, 1, 0, get Death Ward, and just put a billion point stats. And the problem with Witch Doctor, like we said before, is he has 0 armor and he's squishy as hell. With the stats build, well, he's not squishy as hell, but you have a 15-second cooldown nuke and heal aura, which doesn't seem like a very useful hero.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like at that point, why are you even picking Witch Doctor? But I don't know.
Alright.
EG's legit, so.
Yeah.
Items.
Yeah, fogged especially. Anyway, moving on to items. Animal Courier. Movement speed increased from 300 to 350. HP increased from 45 to 75.
So it takes 2 hits now to kill it instead of 1. Big
And
whoop.
has slightly higher move speed, so it's not as easy to chase unless you have the boots.
Yeah, Arcane Boots, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Armlet. I don't even know what's going on with this
I
item.
haven't even looked at this that much. Strength
It's
gain
weird.
is provided over 0.7 seconds. Unholy
So
Strength.
you don't toggle the heal, basically. There's no more Wodota moments. But you couldn't even do that anyway. I've ranted so much about the last change to Armlet, and now this one is just even weirder. I don't understand why they did it. People were... Well,
They might
actually, I
just-
don't understand why they did it. People in pubs were getting upset about the fact that you could toggle. People like, he's toggling and healing. This is ridiculous. But now you can't do it anymore because people are crying about it. This item was not too good in any sense of the word.
Yeah,
Who built
oh my
it?
god,
Nake's-
Nix got
Nake's
it.
built this item, right?
Yeah.
Who else built it?
That's
about it.
That's it.
Yeah, and you could build it sort of on weird heroes like PA and stuff that didn't necessarily need it. DK could sometimes build it, but you won't do it anymore just because it sucks.
And
I
now,
don't know. It's just this is just
Wait,
another example of the
oh.
game balanced for casual because people were just getting upset about Armlet in their low level games and complaining about it on forums and stuff, and now they got their way and now it's bad. So I don't know.
I can't even comment on this. It's just really weird. It's just, I know it's worse, obviously a lot worse, but I just can't even picture it. Our Unholy Strength no longer has toggle on or off cooldown. Whatever. BKB recipe increased by 75 gold. That's a little bit, but people will just hit 2 or 3 more creeps and get the BKB recipe.
Yeah.
So
Damage
BKB
no
is such
longer-
an important item that this won't really matter.
Yeah. Blink Dagger damage no longer ignores self damage or damage disable. So I was trying to think of who this is important on. Abaddon does self damage that doesn't matter. Centaur does self damage that does matter, right?
Yeah, no, I think
Fudge?
Abaddon is HP removal direct. So yeah, like you
No,
said.
it's not because it cancels urns and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
So Rot will trigger it, which is obviously important to Pudge. But who else is this important on? I'm trying to think, and I'm drawing a blank.
Scent.
Yeah. I don't know. Leave it in the comments if you can figure out who this is meant for, aside from Pudge.
Yep. It's obviously
Bloodstone.
meant for Pudge primarily.
Yeah.
Bloodstone. This won't change anything about him.
It's just
it.
nice.
Yep.
He's been working towards making items have their components in them, and now it actually does, so it's cool.
Move to travel now prioritizes nearby structures first within 325, because I always target the ground. I never really target directly a building. So it's good. Moving on.
Bottle.
Bottle.
Increased from 600 to 650. This is important.
Yep.
On mids, it means an extra creep. But on offlane, a lot of offlaners like to build the bottle. If you can. Like, if you can get it early, you'll get the bottle on pretty much most of them. You can't really do that anymore, because getting to 600 as an offlaner was already really hard to begin with, and now that it's 650, it's going to be even harder. So I think it's more of a mid item now.
Which it always was, but we'll go later on about the other thing that happens mid. Clarity no longer shareable, but can still use on target ally. I mean, the only time I've ever used Clarity is like if I have an extra Clarity as I'm a Dazzle and I'm just going to heal up my Morphling or whatever. So
Yeah, it's not huge.
and that I use it on them anyway directly. It's not shareable. Dust slowed by 5 extra %. not really that important, we don't think. Yul Scepter Divinity cooldown reduced by 5 seconds, move speed bonus increased to, wow, is it 40? I remember when it was 25. Every
I don't know.
patch they buff it. Well, Scotty, move speed attack slow is increased to 35 at both times. Alright, big whoop. It's still the ultimate orb problem. Flying Courier cannot be purchased until 3 minutes after creep spawn. This
What
is
an
the
awful
other
change.
other big thing about the patch.
Okay. One, you can't stop Furion from sniping it, meaning your mid doesn't have access to courier until 3 minutes.
Assuming, of
That's
course, Fearon
very
guesses
much
where the path will go. But if he's smart, he will.
Yeah. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't get what the point is.
I mean,
Obviously, it's to stop the first bottle crow.
we're going to see even more static mids than before, and we're already seeing a relatively static amount. So we're going to see Quap. We don't even see Puck very much anymore.
Puck? He's played a lot. No, it's just to stop the first bottle crow. When you get your bottle, it's to stop it from doing an immediate crow at like the 132-minute mark. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yep.
I just don't understand. But whatever. Gem of True Sight gold cost increased even more for some reason. So
Well, it's because you get a bit of extra gold now. 1.6 or 0.6 rather than 0.8.
yeah, but it's harder to get to in the first place.
Yep.
When you're at support, that's a lot of money. This
And
is legit. Hanamitis and Dominator, you can't be used against Necro anymore, which is actually, I really like this, because Necro's a legit thing, but it was, yeah,
Yeah.
it was just too hard countered.
Yep. Anyway, moving on to Salve. Gold cost increased from 100 to 115. I guess that's in line with the extra bit of starting gold you start out with. No longer shareable, but can still be used on a target ally, and Tangos are also no longer shareable, but as
That's
a weird
huge
thing,
and good, and that's like one of the better things.
can't pool.
Yeah, pulling mid was so dumb. And it was an arms race, too, because if you pulled your mid once, the enemy had to pull him once. And now it's even, so you're like, okay, I guess I'll pull him twice, which means that their enemy mid has to be pulled twice now, too. So,
But
I'm glad
people
that that's
sometimes
no
pull it off lanes. Like, you could pull Bounty Hunter.
you could pull off lanes, you could even pull carries. But the fact that pulling isn't a thing anymore makes me really happy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, it's going to throw a change in Naomi's plans because, well, I remember they always used to pull Denny. I don't think they pull him nearly as much anymore.
Pretty much every team always pulls every mid ever in most matchups. It's not just Navi, it's everybody.
Alright, Hell Dominator no longer control Necro units. We already talked about Hyperstone gold reduced by 100. That's pretty cool. Lincoln Sphere can now be cast on an allied hero to transfer the buff. When it's on cooldown, it does not
That's
work
so
on
dumb.
you. Goes on to cooldown when cast, and when the buff is used up. If the cooldown ends and the buff has not been used up, the buff ends and does not trigger another cooldown.
I strongly dislike it because now you just put it on someone before they are BKB, and now they're invincible. It means like Weaver lineups are a lot stronger because you can put your Lincolns on your BKB carry, or other carry, I guess, and now they're invincible.
But you have to build the Lincolns, and that's 5k gold.
Yeah, but you're Weaver, you're building it anyway.
But what if you don't have another carry if you're the Weaver? I mean, maybe
Then it doesn't even matter. It's not a nerf if you don't have another carry.
It
It's
just,
not
yeah, I
worse.
don't, like, people who build Lincoln Sphere will still build Lincoln Sphere. People who don't build Lincoln Sphere won't build Lincoln Sphere just because of this.
No, it doesn't change who builds Lincoln Sphere. It changes. It means that Lincoln Sphere is better for other people on your team, specifically your other carry, because now your Shadow Fiend, who was BKB'd, instead of just netting him or voring him or whatever, or Batrider lassoing him, you just put your thing on him and then he goes ham. So
I don't know. I don't think it's really that big a deal. Because
don't like it.
It's a 20-second duration. What's the cooldown? 20 seconds. So you can just wait it out.
I don't think it's terrible. I don't think in that it's going to affect game change, but I think it's not a well thought out design change.
I agree with you on that point. It doesn't really make much sense in my opinion. Maelstrom Chain Lightning AoE increased. Mjolnir static charge radius increased by 150. Hit count increased by 2. AoE increased by 400. These items are still items in the game, apparently. Necronomicon summoning unit duration increased from 35 to 40. You know, it's always a bit odd that Necro has a 90-second or 85-second cooldown. And
I think it's 85, but
they
I'm
don't
not
even
sure.
last half that long. But, you know, with the Midas as well as the Necro or the Helmet Dominator change, might see a bit more. Hordes. Or what were
Doesn't
you going to
matter.
say?
Killing them giving a gold bounty is kind of nice, I guess.
It encourages pubs toward, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's another way that supports can get money to speed the game up because they're not getting money from the pool anymore.
That's true.
Phase
Phase
boots, it doesn't matter. Pipe, the barrier increased. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a quality of life.
Yep. People are going to build pipe, will build pipe. People who don't, won't build it anyway. Power treads, move speed bonus reduced. I guess an equalization radiance increased. The AoE increased, at least not the damage. Refresh Orb gives the attack speed from the components. Rod of Atos. Cooldown reduced from 16 to 12. What's the duration? Is it 4 seconds? So it's 1/3. Still not going to matter too much.
Yeah.
S and Y move speed bonus increased from 12 to 16%. I don't know why that was. S and Y is reasonably picked up anyway. Why buff it even more?
Yeah, I don't know, but
Anyway, Sentry Ward duration increased from 3 to 4 minutes. No one gives permanent vision around it, which means not the true sight vision, but the actual vision, and gives ground vision in a 150 area for 12 seconds when placed.
it is what it is. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, it's
I don't
buff
think it's
to the true sight, but you can no longer, I guess, just see when people are smoked up unless you look directly at it. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the no longer gives permanent vision around it.
Yep.
Shadow Amulet is
It's still part of Shadow Blade.
useless. Yeah.
Shadow
I like that Shadow Blade was nerfed. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Shadow Blade is just an annoying item to deal with in general. Smoke Deceit. Smoke units are now always hidden until the buffer is removed, rather than being hidden only for the minimap and partially for the world. What does that even mean?
You know what? I don't know. I was gonna ask you.
Always hidden until the buff is removed, rather than being hidden only from minimap and partially from the world. So
I guess it means that you can see it if they run by. You know what this might mean? This might mean that if you run through a place on the map with obs and sense, it doesn't see. I don't know. Someone tell us what this means.
yeah, we're too stupid. Moving on
Yeah.
to Tango, charges increased from 3 to 4. Gold cost has been increased and is no longer shareable. Again, back to the pulling. One extra Tango charge for 35 gold. That's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Tranquil Boots now
It's no
are
longer shareable. Triangle. This is
super
good.
legit.
This is one of
Yeah.
the best changes.
So, just going over a bit of brief Dota history. Well, let's look at the change first. So, new Tranquil Boots now give 85 move speed, 4 armor, 10 HP regen. And if they're broken, they have 60 and still 4 armor. So, a bit of Dota history. The reason why Phase Boots, when it was first introduced, was picked on everything over treads, over travels. If you didn't pick up Phase Boots, you were stupid. Was basically because of the armor, because it gave fire armor, because it used a chainmail, and I think a blades of attack. But now Tranquil Boots, plus 4 armor, as well as 10 HP regen.
Legit.
It's really, really good, but it also means that you don't get the extra boost via the phase boots. You don't get the extra DPS or the tread switching that treads give you. It doesn't give you the boost of travel, but the extra armor means that supports can actually, use it reasonably well, and they can actually run away when it's broken rather than just hope to
And
limp
dying
away.
when it's broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the. I mean, here's the thing with Tranquils. They used to be way too good because everybody got them. Offlaners got them to run away. Mids got them. Well, some mids got them. Supports got them to heal. And carries got them to farm. And then they got terrible, and no one ever got them. And now I think they're good because it's a support item now. Carries aren't going to get them because you're not going to heal. Mids aren't going to get them because it doesn't do anything for mids.
I
You have
like
a
that.
bottle.
I like that you can't disassemble. You have to commit to it.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's good on supports.
Yep. Restores when you haven't been attacked. I assume this includes neutrals. Restores when you haven't been attacked or been attacked in the last 13 seconds. But, I mean,
Yeah.
13 seconds, it's HP regen. It's not just the heal. Anyways, moving on to Earn. Cooldown reduced from 10 to 7. Vanguard. Alright, good job, Earn. Vanguard damage block chance increased from 70 to 80%. Good job, Vanguard. Veil Discord is now uses the Null Tiles instead of Robe of the Magi. So if you start with the Null Tile, then you can build into a Veil, and the magic resistance is pretty useful. I mean, but why get a Veil when you have ET on your team anyway?
Yeah, right? I know. But I do like how the build-up was changed.
Yeah, that's always been one of the main problems. So it gives you a bit of extra damage, and it does give you a bit of extra duration, and it makes a bit more sense. And having an extra bit of armor also makes sense. So overall, the patch change. Now that we looked at it a bit more, I'm liking it a bit more, but
There's some legit things that are like medium status. but the biggest changes in this patch I strongly dislike. But I don't know, maybe I just hate change.
That might be it. But it's just way too early to tell, and I think the biggest things, day and night, the neutral camp, whether it's 2-1-2, they're just really difficult to theorycraft until we see at least like 2 weeks worth of competitive games. So I don't know when this patch will be introduced. I imagine it will be relatively soon before some of the big tournaments start back up. Just give the top 2 changes and top 2 hates.
Okay. Top 2 hates. Roshan change, support change, or the everything that has to do with jungling and the offlane versus tri-lane changes. I'm just going to lump that in one big change and just think of it as bad.
Alright.
Top 2 changes. I really, really liked the Tranquil Boot change. I thought that was super legit. And what else?
Pick a hero.
I like the Viper change, to be honest.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff that was like not game breaking, but just like nice. Like the Chaos Bolt and damage and stun being inversely related. There's a lot of nice little stuff, but the biggest big thing I would say was Viper.
Alright, my top 2 hates are the Roshan, Envenomed, it's random, come on, and the day and night, like,
Oh yeah, Day and Night was awful too.
yeah, those are my 2 least favorite. I'm still iffy, I'm right now generally disfavoring the pole spots being switched, but I'm a little bit tired of seeing 3-1-1, to say the least.
Fair enough.
Top 2 approved, Dazzle, of course. Top 1 being approved. And the buyback change. I think it's make sure that you can't just throw out the buyback and get yourself right back to the fight. You have to actually think when you buy back. So
And what's extra cool about the buyback, I thought, was that it doesn't hurt you if you're buying back and killing people. It hurts you if you're buying back and farming.
yeah.
So I'm down with that.
Alright. So that's going to be it. Please leave feedback below, and if you've ever experienced in the Dota 2 test client, then you can let us know some of the questions we had. There are going to be more changelog updates in the near future by people. I know Lumi's probably doing one with AUI. I think Syndren's going to do one tomorrow, which is probably going to be super baller, because Syndren's awesome. So check them out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.